now.
Oh, baby. Football is back, and that means overtime is back here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett with you. Still a few minutes left in the Niners Week 1 game, but they are about to cruise to victory. The score right now, 30-7. The 49ers will go into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers in week number 1 and improve to 1-0 to start the 2023 regular season. Guys, I am thrilled to be with you here on Overtime today and for the entire 2023 season, hopefully into a deep postseason run. But 30-7 is the score right now. We'll see if there's a score or two before the game does end. Guys, welcome to Overtime. It's great to have you, and a fantastic first week for the 49ers.
Great to be with both of you. And look, this is what everybody, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, this is what the Niners front office, the Niners roster, everybody on the team, they were just waiting for real football. Enough of the talking about who they should have drafted this and how they could have handled that. When we get on the field, it will be crickets because we're going to do our job and we're going to take care of business, and that's what they did today.
It was a statement win, or at least going to be a statement win. They knew coming in, put the Trey Lance talk behind them, and let's just play actual football like Alan said. Go out there, go out to Pittsburgh week 1, and show the NFL that you deserve to be in the Super Bowl last year, and, well, they did that today.
Yeah. That's exactly what they did. And look, man, we're watching the other games, and you're seeing just ugly score. This is the only statement win I've seen for this first slate of games, right? If you look at the teams that have some high expectations, Pittsburgh is a team. They were the dark horse pick. They were the sexy pick. Hey, Kenny Pickett, and we'll obviously get into 2 second-year quarterbacks, one taken in the first round, one taken in the last round. And, you know, if you watch, you think it was reversed. And that's what Brock Purdy has done ever since he took step as QB1.
Yeah, so we're here on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. We want to hear from you throughout the show. We'll be on here for a few hours, so get in when you can. You can hit us up on the Xfinity mobile text line, 888-957-9570. That's also the number to call and let us know your thoughts. Again, right now it's the 2-minute warning in Pittsburgh, but this game is over 30-7. The Steelers do have the ball and are driving a little bit. They could score. It's not going to impact the result of this one. The Niners will be 1-0 as they head to Los Angeles for week number 2 a week from now. But 30-7 at the moment. And Alan, I think you said something that's correct, at least in my mind. This 49ers offseason has been tumultuous. There's been so much noise. First it was Brock Purdy's injury, and is he going to be back and even able to play in this game? Then it was, what do you do with Trey Lance?
Right.
There's a solution to both of those. Obviously, Purdy heals. You trade Trey Lance away. And then there's the Nick Bosa holdout, which goes longer than all of us were thinking it was going to go. It gets to a point where maybe he's not even playing in this game. You get him signed on Wednesday. He plays. And it just felt like the 49ers coming out and dominating in the first half, especially in that first quarter. It just felt like they were finally able to put all of that noise from the offseason and then the preseason and training camp, putting it all behind them. A little bit of a shaky second half at times.
Sure.
But the way that they just came out and dominated early, it felt like a statement, as you guys both said. Hey, we've had a strange offseason, but we're still one of the best teams in the NFL, and they showed why early.
Well, exactly, and I want to thank the Niners and this whole station and everybody, national media. We should all thank the Niners for all the content. But now that we can move forward from that and actually just pay attention to the games, that's exactly what we've been looking to do, and that's what the Niners felt. Hey, let's close the chapter on Trey. It didn't work out. We'll move forward. Hey, let's close the chapter. It took a little bit longer to read that chapter of the book, but let's close the chapter on Nick Bosa. Let's make sure he is taken care of, and now we can focus on why nationally the Niners are picked by almost every talking head to at least go to the Super Bowl, and they went out and they proved it today.
Well, I think it shows that inside the building, they don't care what any pundit has to say. They don't care what the conversation outside the building is. The only thing they're focused on, and thankfully this is the way, they want that 6th Lombardi trophy. They want to finally reach immortality, and it seems like, albeit it's week 1, and it's 30-7 right now, that come week 1, it was business from the get-go. They came out, scored 17 points off the bat. The defense looked phenomenal early, but they didn't have a first down, Pittsburgh, till late in the second half.
Yeah.
Like, they just looked atrocious, and San Francisco just dominant on all fronts and putting all the noise behind them and making a statement, eventual win today.
Well, and the bugaboo for this Niners team and Shanahan has been these slow starts, right? And we how much time, we talked about the content, how much time did we talk about last year talking about the monsoon in Chicago? So to go out this year and make sure, hey, we are going to not only win, but we're going to make sure that everybody feels this, right? Philly, they're about to play right now. You're going to feel this. Everybody is going to feel what the Niners are cooking up. And Brock, he heard some chatter too. Okay, hey, was it a flash in the pan? Was it a Jeremy Lin run? It's still early on in his career and in his tenure, but he's saying Purdy sanity, and it's still going now because every time he touches the rock, something good happens, guys. And we were talking during the game, and I said, it feels like very similar to McCaffrey. Those running backs that fall forward. Everything with Purdy happens positively, right? He just doesn't take very many negative plays. When he's about to get sacked, he finds a way to throw the ball away. If it's supposed to be a loss or no gain, he finds McCaffrey. So all those things, and it's not just Purdy. We're going to talk about Purdy because he's the QB. Fred Warner had a great game. Drake Jackson is looking to take another step.
3 sacks today for Drake Jackson.
All these guys were on one accord with one goal in mind.
Drake Jackson, 3 sacks. He needs some TJ Watt money. Am I right?
He's
TJ Watt, 3 sacks.
Wow.
We ain't doing no more contracts.
Yeah. By the way,
Aiyuk.
Final score, last 20 seconds ticking off right now, 30-7. The Niners got one more stop. Sam Darnold came in and took a knee twice.
This year, boys.
Took a knee twice to end the game. So
no more snap counts. No more snap counts.
30-7 is the final. The Niners go into Pittsburgh and they absolutely dominate the Steelers.
Let's go.
They also easily cover. So if you were on Steelers plus 2.5,
great teams cover.
Bad pick, bad bet. Niners get the win. 30-7 is the final score. But you guys are right. It was just dominant from the beginning. The Steelers' first drive, they go 3 and out. It ended with that Drake Jackson sack, his first of 3. And then the Niners on offense just methodically go down the field. Big chunks from McCaffrey on the ground, Deebo Samuel. It ended with Brandon Aiyuk, who had a phenomenal day. Looked like the best player on the field at times for the 49ers. It was a dream start for San Francisco. And it wasn't just the first drive defensively and offensively. They continued that for the vast majority of the first half. Pittsburgh got their only score in the game on the final possession of that first half, but the Niners absolutely controlled the game early. It was you talking about Brock Purdy, Alan, with just making the simple play and always doing something positive. It's got to be easier when you have Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Aiyuk, and all 3 of those guys had good games today.
Exactly. And look, your big players are going to make big plays in big games. And I'm sorry to you, the Pittsburgh fans out there, the terrible towels. Are they called terrible towels because the Steelers are terrible? That's what it looked like in the first half.
This year.
There were a lot of sad faces. I don't know if they had too many Permanente brothers, too many fries in the sandwiches, but they didn't look ready to play. I'm sure Tomlin will say all the right things, but they weren't ready. And this was a team, like I said, the preseason Pickett was the pick, and all that talk about,
he
my
did
gosh,
not look good.
No, Kenny Two Gloves didn't show up. He looked like he didn't know what was going on. We had questions about the nickel position. We had questions too, and very quickly, the Niners said, "Don't worry, we got you." And that first drive, how much have we talked about Shanahan? You got to set the tone. You got to go for it. First drive, they go for it on 4th down.
Yeah.
That set the tone, not just for the game, guys. Dare I say, for the season? Hey. This is a new day. We got our guy, this real deal talk. I'm really going to back it up. And Shanahan did that with his play calling.
Well, it's not just the game itself. It's the offseason along with the game, going out and getting Javon Hargrave, former Pittsburgh Steeler, kind of having this all-in, putting all your chips on the table mentality of, we're going to buy the best defensive tackle on the market. We're going to re-sign the best defensive edge on the market in Nick Bosa and bring him back in. Thankfully, he was here on week 1, but their whole mindset has been, we're going to go all in this year. This is our window. We have to maximize it and capitalize on it right now. And week 1, you win 30-7. And the way they played, Kyle Shanahan's play calling, the weapons on this team, Niner fans, I know it's only week 1, but my goodness, I'm sitting here saying, book that trip to Vegas.
You really
should be there.
You really could. You really could. And I know it's early, and that's why when you have the Super Bowl or bust talk, some people want to sit on the fence and, hey, anything can happen. What are we doing, man? Look at this team.
Yeah.
If not now, then when? Look at this team. Look at it.
Don't do it, Mark.
I get the Super Bowl or bust mentality. I know I do, and I understand that this team has crazy expectations, as they should. I want to enjoy each and every one of these Sundays, though. I don't want to look ahead.
Well, we will. We will.
The whole offseason was spent just nitpicking
quarterback 2, quarterback 3, backup right tackle.
I get it. The Trey Lance pick, one of the biggest failures of this organization has ever had to go through. I understand it was a big story, gigantic story. It deserved the coverage that it got. But this just felt like, all right, let's rinse our mouth out from that bad taste and let's just get back to business, right?
Yeah, this was a Listerine game. We can call it that. And look, I think the big thing when you look at the Niners, and we didn't know, it didn't look like it ever actually rained, right? It almost rained, but it didn't,
just
right?
Some cloudy skies.
Just cloudy skies. And you look at one of the most famous stadiums in all of football. Going in there, Tomlin, his teams historically always play a little bit better. Like we talked about, Pickett was the hot start, the preseason, all those things. So for the Niners to say, that's cool and all, but we got a guy. And we're going to do the comparisons because we have to, because both of them, not only do their last name start with a P, one went in the first round and one went in the last round. One wears 2 gloves, one doesn't need gloves. And I'm taking the guy who doesn't wear gloves, and it's Purdy. And Sterling, we counted, I said, Sterling, how many elite throws did you see from Brock Purdy today? You said 3.
3,
right?
yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, I think 2 or 3 as well. Look, there are throws that happen within the system, right? And we've seen the throws that Purdy makes within the system. But that throw to Aiyuk, that back shoulder, that's not a system throw. Okay, when he eluded a couple rushers and got that ball out for another first down, that is not system throws. So to be able to operate within the system, cool. That's what everybody knew what Brock Purdy could do. Now, on top of that, what can you do? And we saw a little bit of it last year, and if he continues to do it this season, I think that's what puts him over the top, man.
What did Kyle Shanahan call him? The real deal. For Brock Purdy coming in, a ton of pressure. Former number 3 overall pick and Trey Lance out of the building. This is now your team. This is now your offense. You have this immense pressure on you to go out there and prove yourself week 1 against a really stout and good Pittsburgh Steelers defense who Mike Tomlin never had a losing season in his entire career, former champion himself. And so to come out there and put 30 points on the board,
right?
Like, my goodness. He looked like a top 10 quarterback, albeit in, 3 of those quarters, the fourth quarter being a more run-heavy scheme for them to put the game away. But Brock Purdy looked like a guy you point to and say, yes, he is indeed the real deal.
Yeah, and look, that is why when people say, oh, Brock Purdy's not getting enough credit, the way I see it is national media, for the amount of people that have the Niners at least going to the Super Bowl, I do think Brock is respected. But now it's a matter of, hey, he's respected, but is he that dude? I don't think everybody thinks that he's that dude. That's what he has to prove. Everybody would put him, hey, he's at least as good as Garoppolo. But now we're starting to see certain plays that will elevate him above that talk.
Yeah, it was 30 points in the game, but 20 in the first half. They scored on every one of their possessions. A couple of them were field goals. They scored 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals in the first half. By the way, shout out Jake Moody, who was perfect.
Yeah.
Bonus point.
Hey, he's a gamer. Preseason, I don't really mind preseason.
He doesn't get up for preseason.
Exactly.
Games. Yeah.
He's like Draymond. I need the real games. I need the real games.
Yeah, wake me up when we get to April.
Exactly.
We want to hear from you guys. Let us know what you thought from the game. Brock Purdy, did he back up Kyle Shanahan's offseason comments? Did he look like the real deal? What about the defense? The defense was phenomenal. Nick Bosa didn't have a Nick Bosa moment in this game, but the defense still was phenomenal. What did you think? Takeaways from this game? They've given you confidence that this is a team that can indeed win the NFC and potentially win a Super Bowl. 888-957-9570. That's the number to dial. Also, the Xfinity mobile text line. We're also keeping an eye on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/957 the game. Shout out Enrique, Patrick, Mike, Lori. I see a bunch of you guys on the YouTube chat. We love you.
Lori in Phoenix.
As always. Great caller, Lori in Phoenix, and a great YouTube chatter as well. Let's focus on the beginning, and I think I want to focus in on Brandon Aiyuk for a moment because us three, along with all the other guys in the studio watching the game, number of times, all of us in unison all said, "Oh my God, Brandon Aiyuk is so open."
Yes.
How many times does he have a 5-yard cushion against the nearest defender? Obviously, Purdy is still making the accurate throw and putting it on him. My goodness, Brandon Aiyuk is always open 24/7.
Right.
I feel like the Steelers got to be on him a little bit easier. He's just an elite route runner, but he had a fantastic game today.
Technician. We know he's been a technician as a route runner. And Aiyuk, that's another way to compare him to Brock, right? Because Brock, you think, okay, Brock doesn't necessarily need to throw guys open because of the system, right? So that's what people would say.
Yeah.
So when you look at Aiyuk as well, it's, wow, well, Shanahan is scheming this so well that Aiyuk is just wide open. But then when you watch the replays, I mean, he's that wide open because he's cooking dudes. That's not necessarily the scheme. He is cooking dudes. That first touchdown, he caught a body. He caught a body in the end zone, shook that dude out of his shoes.
Oh, he's cooking Patrick Peterson.
All those tackles on the offense.
Podcast Peterson eating some Primanti brothers, man. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut, Podcast
Dude
P.
said, I'm going to get a pick, and there's so many tells in the offense, and the offense puts up 30 points. He gets beat for 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
Even if there is tells, and this is one thing I want to get into a little bit, is that this offense is so good.
Right.
Even if they give a play away, they're still going to put up 30 points against you. And
Right.
This is a good defense in Pittsburgh that has a bunch of veteran players. Minka Fitzpatrick, what did he do today? Nothing. Like, TJ Watt was the best player probably on the field for Pittsburgh. Couple
not
sacks.
close.
Well, yeah, but a couple sacks, but okay, fine. You still got 30 points put up against you.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I don't really understand how people had. I know there are going to be questions about the defense, right? And obviously, no defense is perfect. We'll get into the nickel situation.
Steve Wilkes is there.
Exactly. But I mean, you still got guys. And Hufanga, I mean, that dude, he only has one gear.
The pitch almost interception.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my goodness.
That would have been incredible. Yeah, I mean, the highlight plays on both sides of the field for the 49ers. Aiyuk stole the show offensively. 8 catches, 129 yards, had both of Purdy's passing touchdowns. Purdy ends up going 19 for 29 for 220 on those 2 scores. Did not throw an interception. But you look at some of the other numbers. Obviously, McCaffrey was phenomenal on the ground, had that 65-yard touchdown run to open the second half, 22 carries, 152 yards. But elsewhere offensively, I mean, Deebo Samuel had flashes, 5 for 55. George Kittle, who was questionable coming into this game, only 3 for 19. So you look at the Niners' passing options, really only one went off, and this was still a game where they had 20 at halftime. If they really needed, they probably could have put up 40 if they wanted to. I mean, they could have scored a couple more times in the second half. They were running the ball midway through the third quarter, weren't interested in scoring anymore. So I think we're at a point with this offense, and I don't want to overreact because it is only week 1, but you had one of your pass catchers go off, and you still got 2 elite guys in Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. McCaffrey wasn't involved in the passing game all that much either. This is by no means like the ceiling of what the Niners offense can do. There is still room for this team to grow.
Yeah, but I also would say that that's why I stay away from the Niners in fantasy, because that's how Kyle Shanahan kind of gets down.
You never know who's going to go off on a given
it's not normally maybe 2 guys.
Which
but
is a good problem to have.
Exactly. There's going to be, this was an Aiyuk game, okay? Then there's going to be a Kittle game. We know the connection Purdy has with Kittle. Then at some point, there's going to be a Debo game. So there's going to be a guy that kind of just balances it out. But I don't know how often 2 guys will go off. This is just what we've seen with this offense.
Well, it's pretty easy for Christian McCaffrey to go off. At a certain point in this game, he had more rushing yards than Kenny Pickett had passing yards. Like, Christian McCaffrey, by all intents and purposes, was better than every single player on the Pittsburgh Steelers today, minus TJ Watt. And he was your second best offensive player.
Yeah.
It's insane how well-rounded this team is, but also for a defense like Pittsburgh, who's really good, to come in and say, all these tells and whatever, but no one can stop this offense.
No.
Even Philadelphia, for how great they are. They were going to have a hard time stopping them last year. In second year of Brock Purdy, he can get better. Looked really good today. Christian McCaffrey, year 2 in this system. Brandon Aiyuk wants to get paid, wants to make a statement, and made that statement today. And Deebo Samuel doing his things. A couple comebackers on catches that he shouldn't have made, or kind of a bad throw by Purdy, kind of saved some plays. And so for the Niners, this may be the most loaded team in the NFL. And to come out and again put 30 points up and sit back and say, yeah, someone else go out and do that.
Right.
They're the best team right now in week 1, mind you, but really, really impressive what they did today.
I think it's important to contextualize what happened on the field today, and not just on the field, but who Pittsburgh is. This is the quality football team, especially defensively. I mean, I don't know exactly where I'd put them. They're probably a top 10 defense in the league.
And we saw late in the game that, TJ Watt starts eating up Colton McKivitz. Alex Highsmith, a great defensive end player for them. And Cam Hayward gets hurt, which sucks. But this team is like, they're top 10 defense in football.
Well, and I was just going to say, that's what good teams do, right? Good teams, or great teams, I should say. Great teams make good teams look bad and makes you question, wait, are the Steelers overhyped? I don't think the Steelers are overhyped. I think the Niners are properly hyped, right? I think the Niners are just really, really good, and good offenses. Guys, it reminds me, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. I'm just saying, I'm not comparing him, but I'm just saying, those Tom Brady offenses, right?
Wow.
They always look like there was an extra guy on the field. Where did Julian Edelman come from, right? What's all those guys? That's what it looks like in this offense. It looks like the defense, it looked like it in the preseason, but it's the preseason. But it looked like it last year. It looks like there's always an open guy, and that's because of, one, the way Kyle Shanahan schemes it, and just Brock Purdy, the way he always decides, very decisive, and he goes quick. There just always seems to be an open dude. I'm looking, are there too many guys on the field? That's what it looks like.
Aiyuk open all the time. You find Deebo Samuel on a little crosser over the middle, and he's got 5 yards of space. He makes one man miss, suddenly gets a 20-yard gain. You had on the fourth down conversion on the first drive that you talked about, just a simple little crossing pattern. Kittle comes across in motion, runs in front of Purdy at the line of scrimmage, dumps it off to him in the flat. He breaks one tackle, makes a man miss, has like a 7-yard gain on 4th and 1 to move the chains. The Niners are able to get chunks of yards in ways that, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it looks easy, and it's easier than other teams are able to get those chunks of yardage. I mean, they can stay in front of the sticks, get 5, 6, 7 yards of play without really exerting that much, is what it seems like.
Yeah, and so many people can talk about, oh, well, there's no hero ball or whatever it is, but isn't that good? I mean, the Niners, this travels. This type of gameplay travels. The guys that we've seen, whether it's Josh Allen or whoever, there will be games where they're on, there will be games where they're off.
Look at the Bengals today.
Exactly.
Bench because he was playing so bad and they were losing that game late.
And it's not just about the weapons, because we know the Bengals have ridiculous weapons.
Chase, Higgins.
How are they used, right? The Niners have the weapons and a system that travels, because you're always going to be able to run the football with that offensive line, and the way Kyle Shanahan schemes it and the way Brock Purdy always hits. What was that play at the end of, I think it was at the end of the half, when the Steelers did end up scoring, but Pickett threw it behind the guy, right? And they end up dropping the ball. They did end up scoring, but that's a throw where, okay, if we talk about Purdy and the system, right? The system throws, you have to be elite at that. And Pickett is missing throws behind guys where that was a scheme throw, that wasn't a hero ball throw, and you couldn't make it.
Well, I think it's more credit to Purdy that he looks better than first-round talent. He looks like a player that has been in the league for 5-10 years.
Never worried.
He's not overwhelmed. He's evading, safety blitzes on his blind side.
That was the best play of the game.
From all pro safeties in Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's doing things that you point to and say, that guy's played in the league a decade. When in fact, this is what, his 8th, 9th start in the league? Yeah. Like, what he's been able to do in this short period of time, like, there's nothing else like this other than, back to Alan's point, a Tom Brady-led offense.
Yeah, that play you're talking about, I think it was late first half. Minkah Fitzpatrick comes from the left side on a corner blitz, unblocked. No one's there even to chip him. Purdy, with his back to him, is coming from his blind side, can feel it, see it out of the corner of his eye. He spins around, back to the left, evades Minkah Fitzpatrick, leaves him in the dust, makes a throw across his body to Deebo Samuel. It wasn't a perfect throw. Deebo Samuel moving to his left, which is he's really good at doing somehow. It's rare for right-handed quarterbacks to be that good moving to their left. He makes a throw to Deebo Samuel, who makes a nice leaping, reaching, stretching grab to move the chains on 3rd down. That's a play you don't see a second-year guy with as few starts as Brock Purdy make. To have the ability and the wherewithal to feel that free blitzer coming from your blind side, no one is even there to chip him. He's getting a free rush right at you, and you have your back turned to him, and you don't even get touched, not even a fingertip. In my mind, that was the best play Brock Purdy made all day long, and it wasn't particularly close.
Oh, yeah, and I think the thing is, we're to the point now where you almost forget what year Brock is, because there was that play where it was TJ Watt when he got past McKivitz and Brock just got blasted. Yeah. And we were all looking at each other like, wow, it's not very often where Brock doesn't feel it. Now, he didn't have time to feel it right there, but the expectations are going to continue to skyrocket as they should, because when you set the standard a certain way. So now, guys, what are we at? Is this 9 games? If we don't count Philly because he didn't finish the game.
Eighth start.
So 8th start. Seeing, and we're still on the same run that we've seen. We have yet to see this offense.
He hasn't turned into the pumpkin yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So
he's undefeated still.
It's still. So we're on game 8 now, right? Jeremy Lin's run didn't last this long. And then obviously later in the show we'll look forward a bit. I know we're up against it. So that I just think those are the big things. Shanahan setting the tone, quieting the haters. We're going to go for it on fourth down. I trust my guy. The defense, Wilkes, hey, we're still here. Don't worry about us against a team that now the conversation moving forward will be, are the Steelers overhyped? No, I don't think the Steelers are overhyped. I think the Niners are just the real deal.
Yeah, I got a question for you guys. We can get to it on the other side. Also, for all you guys listening in, give us a call, 888-957-9570. Line up. Who was more impressive today? The Niners offense putting up 30 points on the road against a good defense, or the Niners defense holding Pittsburgh on the road to just 7 points? What was more impressive to you? What they did on offense or what they did on defense? They forced a couple of turnovers, by the way, as well, and had a handful of sacks of Kenny Pickett. Great day for the 49ers on both sides of the football. All right, time for a break here on Overtime, but we're just getting started. Line them up. Let us know on the Xfinity mobile text line, 888-957-9570. We're also keeping an eye on the YouTube chat. We appreciate all you guys tuning in. Week number 1 is over for the 49ers, 30-7. The score, Niners out on top over the Pittsburgh Steelers. More overtime coming up after this break. You're listening on 95.7 The Game.
Did you know that most people wait 6 or 7 years before they buy a new TV? That's a lot of time in front of one TV. So why not get one of the best sets for the next 7 years, like one of the top-rated Samsung, LG, or Sony models? Too expensive? What if you could get up to $1,000 trade-in for your old set? Who would do a stupid deal like this? Right now, at Video Only, you can get big bucks for your old set as a trade-in and a hot price on the new models. Don't be sorry. Check out Video Only.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more straight talk. Let's take a moment to appreciate our sweet children, loving grandparents, and eternal soulmates. Now let's use them.
finds Patrick Peterson. John Lynch loves it. Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Holy cow, what a start.
Now back to overtime with Sterling Bennett, Alan Stiles, and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Overtime continues here on 95.7 The Game after the 49ers knock off the Pittsburgh Steelers 30-7 in week number 1. The Niners go into Pittsburgh. That highlight you just heard was Brandon Aiyuk's second touchdown of the game. That made it 17-0 early in the second quarter. Joe Davis, courtesy of Fox, there on the call. It would be 20-0 at one point for the 49ers. Pittsburgh did answer late in the first half, but the Niners pitch a shutout in the second half, score 10 more points of their own, and they knock off the Pittsburgh Steelers 30-7 in the most lopsided week 1 game so far. The most, impressive effort, I think you can say. The 49ers putting up 30 on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett with you here on Overtime as we continue to roll after week number 1. Guys, the question I asked going into the break, what was more impressive in your mind? The Niners on offense putting up 30 against a really good defense, or the Niners defense holding Pittsburgh to just 7 points? They got questions at quarterback, but they've got some quality weapons as well. The fact that we can ask this question and have a healthy debate about it, I think, is impressive. That's how good both sides of the ball were. But 30-7, dominant on both sides for San Francisco.
Can I pick both? Because they were just so good.
No, you got to pick both.
You can't do that.
Honestly, I think I would say San Francisco's defense. They are always being tasked with starting the game off, making a statement. Go out there and shut the opposing offense down on the road in Pittsburgh and really come out there and dominate the game at the line of scrimmage, and they did that today. 15 plays, 5 drives for the Pittsburgh Steelers, 1 yard of offense to start this game
ridiculous.
That gave San Francisco all the cushion they needed to. And look, it really also allowed the offense to get in a rhythm, kind of calm themselves down, not feel any pressure to score early in this game, and that kind of gave them the cushion they needed to end this game. They scored 20 points in the first half, only scored 10 in the second half. Didn't need to score much more in the second half. But the defense today, 2 takeaways, a pick early from Mooney Ward, Hufunga's pick later, a couple sacks by Drake Jackson. This defense today came to play, and I can argue that all the question marks of, how is Steve Wilks going to come in after DeMeco Ryans leaves for Houston? There was no drop-off in week 1.
No, not at least in week 1. And again, a team in the Steelers, the sexy pick. Hey, don't sleep on the Steelers. Well, no, I'm catching some Z's right now. I'm definitely catching some Z's because, we know they have guys. Pickens making highlight reel. He's all over Bleacher Report.
He almost had one crazy
He did.
touchdown.
He almost had one. So this was the team. They loaded up weapons. Hey, another a 2-year guy looking to take that step. And at the beginning of the season, right, there's 2 sides of the coin. You can be on the side of, hey, we're going to overreact and let's pack our bags to Vegas, or it's a long season. At the end of the game last year, and these last couple years with these slow starts, as Niner fans, you're saying it's a long season. But this year, you want to pack your bags. And that's the difference when you start the season off like they did last year compared to this season. And the Niners right now, Christian McCaffrey, I'd have to go with the offense because honestly, you knew what you were going to get. Wilks, I get it, but they lost Saleh, they lost Ryans, they've lost guys before, and the defense hasn't dropped off, right? As much as people want to make it's gotten better, right? So people want to, how's it going to work out? As long as you got certain guys, we talk so much about the offense, and hey, they got weapons on offense. They got weapons on defense. So as long as you got those dudes, you're not going to have some type of drop-off where you fall off a cliff. It was that offense where, and thank you, Lori, I see you on the YouTube chat, and I've talked about how, hey, there's only one football. So is it going to be Aiyuk? I know Debo's coming. Everybody's going to have a game. So for Aiyuk to come out and say, look, man, I know my role and I'm going to perform it at an elite level. From from Jump Street, I think that was more impressive because I never thought that the defense was going to fall off. It was more about, okay, I know the offense, great in the preseason, but that's preseason. What can we do with that? We know what they did last season. All the chatter, and the offense just came out and said, look, and Steelers, okay, in Pittsburgh, it's going to be gritty, it's going to be cold, all those things. And the Niners said, we're rolling, man. And this offense is going to travel anywhere it needs to go.
Totally understand what you're saying. I got to disagree, though. I think it's the defense for me. The stat you laid
That's right,
out.
Mark.
The stat you laid out.
He gets me, Alan.
This is the first show already. 3-man weave.
We're
Now
already
it's
picking
2-on-1.
sides.
That's all right.
Pittsburgh's first 5 drives, 15 plays, 1 interception, 4 punts, 1 net yard. Terrible towel for sure for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was incredibly bad. The Niners forced Kenny Pickett to throw 2 interceptions. He was 31 for 46. A lot of that is just garbage time stuff in the second half. That's why they threw the ball 46 times. They only ran the ball for 41 yards on the ground, only had 10 rushing attempts because the Niners were up 20 before you could even blink in that game. The defense was incredible, and I think you could clearly see Nick Bosa a little bit winded at times.
Didn't even have an impact on the game
He
that
didn't.
much.
And Drake Jackson still had 3 sacks.
Their team had 5 sacks. Like,
Javon Hargrave had a sack in his debut.
This defense is so good.
It's very good.
And it's not a
good.
knock on the offense at all. It's just you have one of the most elite defensive groups in the NFL, and you have one of the most elite offensive groups in the NFL.
Well, there's no wrong answer, right? There's no wrong answer. That's why they're a top 3 roster in my mind, right? And I don't even know who the other 2 are. I just know that they're top 3.
I think they're
probably
number
number 1.
Yeah.
They're probably number
the
1.
best one, yeah.
When you watch a team like the Steelers and what they did in the preseason Pickett, that's his new nickname, and you got preseason
you
Pickett
got podcast
and
Peterson.
Podcast Peterson, and you look at what they did in the preseason, and then you go into this game and you're thinking, what was the Steelers' plan, right? And it doesn't matter because their plan, whatever their game plan was, it got wrecked. It got wrecked by multiple guys on that Niners offense. And Fred Warner, I can't say it enough, man. When we were waiting for Bosa to get back on the field and he got the sack and he did the shrug, I mean, that guy is a beast. And we all know that. But then you see it in live time against another good defense. Just like I always say, shout out the book of Meek Mill, there's levels to this. And the Niners are on a different level than the Steelers.
Well, you brought up levels earlier when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers made a good team in Pittsburgh play like a bad team.
Yeah.
That's what elite teams do. Where San Francisco today showed there was a wide margin from elite to borderline playoff team where going to the NFC playoff picture this year and you have Philadelphia, you have San Francisco, and a bunch of average, barely division winners and a bunch of guys who will win 9-10 games this year, where San Francisco, where me and Mark said 11 games this year is probably the mark for wins and losses. This team looks like they can run the gauntlet right now. They're healthy for the first time in a long time, obviously week 1, but this team looks like a Final Four team.
Well, and the whole Kittle security blanket thing, did Kittle have a catch?
3.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even remember
this
that.
was a game, you look at Pittsburgh's linebackers, they're not very good. Cole Holcomb, Elandon Roberts, Keanu Neal, those guys stink.
Right.
This was a game Kittle was supposed to have a big game. He didn't do much.
He didn't need to.
And they still scored 30 points.
He had the big fourth one. Yeah, he had the big 4th down conversion. But besides that, it's pick your poison. And that is, I hate to love my overused sports terms.
It's picking your poison.
He was the poison today. But that's truly what it is with this offense. You can't double everybody. And when you got Debo who's looking for contact, I'm going to ruin your day. When you have Aiyuk just cooking fools because he's the technician, and you have Kittle, by the way. Oh, and let's not forget you got Christian McCaffrey. I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Well, yeah, no, 100%. And I think when I was digging into the prep for this game, getting ready for it, the more I thought about it, the more I came to the conclusion, I think the Niners are just a terrible matchup for the Steelers, specifically the Niners offense against the Steelers defense. Pittsburgh's strength is their pass rush with TJ Watt. I mean, a couple of years ago, broke the single season sack record. He was the highest paid pass rusher until Nick Bosa signed on Wednesday.
Right.
Highest paid in NFL history. They have fantastic defensive backs as well. Minka Fitzpatrick is really good. Patrick Peterson is certainly past his prime, but still a quality player. And
no picks.
Don't tell him that.
he got cooked a couple of times today. He did have a couple.
Patty over there.
Did have a couple of nice plays. But the more I thought about it, the Pittsburgh weakness, as you're talking about, it's the middle of their defense, their linebackers. And where Niners just put teams in headlocks is when they have Aiyuk and Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey running over the middle of the field on shallow crossers. Those linebackers cannot stay with those receivers for the 49ers, and that was where they got a lot of their yards. I mean, how many times, you called it out like 5 different times, Aiyuk running just a simple slant.
It's the same slant. I honestly thought somebody, I don't know what it's called now. That used to be TiVo. I thought somebody had sat on the remote and TiVo'd the same play over and over again. And one more thing for Patrick Peterson, and I'm going to tell you right now, do your job and shut your mouth.
Wow.
Do your job and shut
Going
your
full
mouth.
on rock. Know your role and shut your mouth.
That's exactly right.
Man.
In case those of you didn't hear it, late last week, leading up to week number 1, he went on a podcast. I don't have it off the top of my head immediately. I will track the name down for you. And he essentially said Brock Purdy has a tell, as in he lets you know where he's going to throw the ball before he throws the ball. And he called this shot. He said he was going to have an interception. Pat, you did not have an interception. In fact, you got beat for 2 touchdowns.
Well, here's the thing, though. There were a couple throws.
The All Things Covered podcast.
Gotcha.
Yes. And there were a couple throws that we watched where Purdy did look down his receiver, and those are the situations where I would say, okay, that's Aiyuk cooking, or that's a scheme situation. But besides those throws, right, which are obviously open, so it doesn't really make a difference, I didn't really see the whole, okay, he rolls to his left more. Cool. We have yet to see somebody make it hurt, right? Yeah. I mean, how many throws compared to Pickett where you just miss? I think that's the biggest thing, missing guys. How many times, and because schemes work very often, right? Whether it's the Turkey Bowl, whether you're playing in the real thing. Schemes work, but you have to hit your man, and it's not just a catchable ball. There were a couple that you said, Sterling. Debo was Debo. He reaches back, does a mini 360, right, a 180, and keeps going. That's sure, there's that, but it's also just keeping stride. Those are the things that Purdy does well, and that's why Kyle Shanahan was licking his chops just to be done with the drama, get out here, and I'm going to unleash the real deal on you. And then you have a Brandon Aiyuk who, look, guys, let's not forget, that draft was heavily loaded with wide receivers.
Justin Jefferson.
And those
CeeDee
guys,
Lamb.
and so those guys they are highlighted more often in those offenses. So I think we got a team of chips. Just call them the San Francisco Frito-Lays, because you got Brock Purdy with the chip. Okay, you got Brandon Aiyuk with the chip. You got all these guys that want to prove what they can do, and they show it night in and night out, and they started with week 1.
Is this the most impressive week 1 in the Kyle Shanahan era?
Oh, I got to think back to some past week 1. So not last year.
Not last year. They lose against the Bears. 2 years ago, they win, but almost fall apart against the Lions.
Right.
And before that, they just weren't that good.
2019, Nick Bosa's rookie year, the year they went to the Super Bowl, they dominated the Bucs on the road.
Yes.
I remember that. That one stands
Maybe
out.
that game, that being kind of the first, we're here finally game.
Yeah.
But this one feels like we're not just here.
Yeah.
We're here to run the entire thing back. We are going to be one of the best teams in football, and we're loaded at every single front. And let's get Kyle Shanahan his flowers. He came in, and I think we saw today the difference of an elite offensive mind and a bad offensive mind. Matt Canada in Pittsburgh, my goodness. Your quarterback was missing plays, but Najee Harris into the teeth of the defense.
Every single time.
Armstead and Hargrave, they had no space to run.
Fred Warner lit him up a couple of times.
There was no windows to throw. Matt Canada came in saying, I'm going to scheme these guys open, and no one was open.
No, you're not.
Shanahan looked like his mind. We know he's one of the top guys, but there was not only people open constantly, but he also has the weapons in Aiyuk and Debo and Kittle and Christian McCaffrey to, if his scheme breaks down, which is rare, they can still make big plays.
Yeah, and we didn't see a lot of McCaffrey catching the football.
No,
he was
catches.
a pure running back today. And look, they're good. The thing about Shanahan is the way he plays these games, literally and figuratively. Now he can go into the next week and people can sit there and say, okay, this is what they did. He can scheme up a completely different game plan. Completely different.
Yeah,
What's the Rams do?
The crazy thing is, the Niners put up 30. If they really wanted, if they were in a dogfight, they could have probably pushed 40. What did they do special? This was just it felt like,
there's one special play that being the back shoulder from Purdy to Aiyuk.
And McCaffrey broke a 65-yard touchdown run, but that's not out of the ordinary necessarily. He's not going to have that every week, but that's something that he can do.
But is the special now becoming the common thing in San Francisco?
That's the point. And it doesn't have to be I felt like in the past, I always think back to the play that got Kittle a touchdown in the Thursday night game in Seattle last year, which clinched the division, where I think it was like a double pump fake for Purdy, faked once left, fake once right, and then George Kittle wide open down the middle. I feel like there are times where you see a play like that and you go, oh my God, the mind of Kyle Shanahan is incredible. The way that he schemes it up and times it all perfectly. You fake at this point, you're going to get that safety to bite. It opens up down the middle. You fake again, the other one leans left, and then you have a wide open down the middle. It didn't feel like we had a ton of moments like that. It just felt like these were the Niners guys going out and beating the Steelers guys. It's not a knock on Kyle Shanahan. If you have that talent that can get open and make plays for you without having to dive deep into your playbook, I mean, why would you? This felt like not vanilla, but it didn't feel like the Niners were pulling out anything special for this game, and they still put up 30 points.
Yeah, I would say Brock Purdy's elusiveness was special, but the back shoulder throw, but also a couple different plays where he was dead to rights and still got it done. That was the special piece of this. But either way you look at it, Shanahan's involved, because whether you drafted these guys or you accumulated the correct draft capital, be able to go out and get a Christian McCaffrey. So either way you spin it, it's not a matter of, oh, well, can you blame Kyle Shanahan? Look at this team. He built this, right? He built this, and now he's just cashing in on what he's built. So I think that kudos goes to him. I think the thing is, guys, as we continue to talk this game, it's going to be hard to not look ahead, because you start to think, all right, we knew that this was possible, right? Now it becomes, this is becoming the standard. And that goes to your question, Sterling, of does the special not look special? It hasn't. The piece of it is we don't need it to be special, right? Because you have these playmakers, the way that you scheme it, it looks special without looking special. You just look, and I would say this, the term I would use if I was a team, if I don't like the Niners and I'm watching the Niners play, that offense is just annoying. It's very annoying, because
it's like Mahomes.
It's annoying. That's what I'm saying.
It's like Tom playing whack-a-mole. You cover one hole up and then another one pops up.
Tom Brady, same thing, right? You think, okay, we got him here, we got him there, and all of a sudden somebody just pops back up. So whack-a-mole.
But it's almost like at this point where Shanahan's offense is already insane. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like he's his own weapon again, where in previous years he was kind of the driving force behind the offense, and he's still, again, he is the offensive coordinator and head coach, but it feels like because he has the weaponry now, that his play calling is another weapon on top of it, where it was kind of the driving factor in previous years. Now he has Kittle and Aiyuk and Debo, where it's like those guys can get their own any single Sunday. But now you add in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and the guys are open 15 yards with no one around them. Like, I cannot see a defense saying, hey, we can stop them.
I can't either.
Like, they're just too good. They're too explosive. And they're so deep. It's not just like the Vikings have Jefferson, the Bengals have Burrow, and they have Chase. The Niners have two amazing receivers, one of the best tight ends, the best running back in football, and if Brock Purdy can ascend, which he had a really good game today and had a couple nice plays, what if he gets better? Like, Kyle Shanahan's cooking.
I can't see this team finishing a game, and I know it's early, but hey, it's not Overreaction Monday, because we're on overtime right now with the guys. It's Overreaction Sunday. I can't see this team finishing a game under 25 points. I can't see it.
That would be impressive.
I can't see it.
Well, I mean, you didn't even mention George Kittle there when you're going through all the weapons. And the other thing that makes this defense or this offense, it's not even just about the individual players. Like, oh, McCaffrey's one of the best, if not the best running back. Kittle is up there for tight ends. Aiyuk, purely as a route runner and pass catcher, is incredible. Deebo Samuel does two things fantastic. This offense, when you combine it all together, is so incredibly versatile, and they can beat you in so many ways. McCaffrey is almost as good of a receiver as he is a running back. You could say the same thing, but swapped about Deebo Samuel. He's a fantastic runner, but also a really good wide receiver. George Kittle obviously can beat you in a ton of ways, and he's also maybe your sixth offensive lineman. That's how good of a blocker he is. This team, I think it unlocks the genius that is Kyle Shanahan, because he has so many toys and plays and things that he can play with and kind of put together. Oh, this piece goes here. Okay, that one's going to go there. Oh, wait, no, that didn't work. Okay, I'm going to move this guy over to here, and he's going to come across in motion. There's just so many different things that Kyle Shanahan can do with all of these versatile weapons. So I think it kind of works twofold. One, you just have the talent, and obviously you need the talent if you're going to be good in this league, but the talent that they have, the versatility that they have, allows Kyle Shanahan to be more creative with what he can develop and write down and create. So I think it's really the perfect mesh of talent, and it fits specifically into what Kyle Shanahan wants to do.
Yeah, all of the question marks from this offseason, they checked off all the boxes, right? I don't think there was a quarterback controversy. We all knew Brock was QB1. Yep. I think it was just, what are you doing with Trey Lance? Check that box. Have fun in Dallas. Then you have Nick Bosa. Check that box. He's out there. And lastly, Moody, okay? That was a big question. Oh my gosh, it's going to be cold in Pittsburgh, and what's he going to do? He's been wobbly during the preseason.
Well, and we weren't even sure he was going to play either.
We're not sure he was going to play.
Matthew Wright.
Are you calling back Robbie Gould? Like, what are you doing? Check that box. So it's early. It's a long season. But all the boxes and all the question marks that people had about the Niners, they found a way in one game to answer those questions, which is probably the most impressive part of the victory.
I think we have a nickname for Jake Moody already.
Uh-oh.
Enrique in the chat says Legatron.
What was his longest? Like 41 today?
Yeah, 58 in warm-ups. I'll give him that.
I'm not calling him Legatron
yet.
until he makes at
Not
least
yet.
50 in a game.
But still,
it's in
that's
the
a
runnings.
weapon now for Shanahan to
Yeah.
be more aggressive. Like there's ball on the opponent's 45-yard line. It's third and 8. Now it's 3rd and 5. Kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Like it's stuff like that where before the half's over, you can be more aggressive with your offense, and you get a guy that can get you a 60-yard field goal. We haven't seen yet in actual game time, but it does change your offense and to be more aggressive.
Well, and they were going to do that at the end of the first half, and then a penalty pushed them back and pushed them out of range.
Jake Brendel.
That's maybe one of the only negatives is some of the penalties on the offensive line, which we can talk about. But they were planning to do that. They were perfectly comfortable trotting out Jake Moody for a 50-yard field goal to end the first half. The penalty pushed them back, and they decided to punt instead. But it does seem like, despite the preseason struggles, they are still pretty comfortable with Jake Moody's leg.
Well, yeah, and
They have to be, right?
Well, they
don't really have a choice at
right.
this point. Yeah.
They have to be, and I think that I know I wasn't the only one. We were sitting here in the green room watching, and we all held our breaths once they scored the touchdown. All right, this is going to determine a lot. This extra point, are you going to get it done or not?
Everything rides.
Everything rides. Hey, man, it's a mental game, and he went dead red, and I think we all just bang Niner game just took a collective breath when that went down the middle.
Yeah, he had 32-yard field goal, 40-yard field goal, 41-yard field goal, and 3 for 3 on extra points as well.
Sounds like Legatron to me.
Sounds like a good third-round pick.
Jury's still out.
One game, but
let's not
Legatron
get
is better than
Okay.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. I think that the other thing that made this Niners team so successful last year was their propensity to force turnovers, and you saw it multiple times today. They forced 2 interceptions of Kenny Pickett, one in the first half that led to a field goal. They had one as well in the second half. You mentioned earlier, it almost was an incredible highlight reel pitch by Talanoa Hufanga.
Yeah.
It was just barely a forward pitch, so it was a flag and got called back. The interception still stood. But the 49ers defense, it's one thing if you're forcing 3 and outs, if you're getting sacks, if you're not allowing teams to drive down and score points. The defense reaches a different level when you're forcing turnovers. The Niners were best in the league at that last year, and they got off to a good start again this year. Those sorts of things, the turnover margin, I always kind of feel like it swings. Like the Niners 2 years ago when they made the NFC Championship game kind of miraculously, they were bad in terms of turnover margin, and then it just swung back in their favor last year, best in the league. Not expecting it's going to be best in the league again this year, but if this is a defense that can consistently force turnovers once again, you're just adding a whole nother level to already an incredibly stacked team.
Yeah, and look, those are the things that travel. You have to be able to turn the ball over. And I think Lowe was saying you got to win those you got to stay on third down on offense. You got to get off on defense. And those are some of the things that they did.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think when you look at the defense, you point to Hufanga and you point to Mooney Ward's interceptions, but also what that does is it allows your offense to get back on the field and stay aggressive. And with a team like Pittsburgh, again, you're on the road, an atmosphere which is usually, pretty crazy. It's not Philadelphia, but it is a really good football town in Pittsburgh.
And there were boos in the first half.
Oh, yeah. They want to take the gloves off.
Put your biscuit back in.
Yeah, serious. We got a we're done with the controversy. You can have fun with that in Pittsburgh.
But what I do think it does is it allows the offense to get back on the field. It allows Kyle Shanahan to go out there and put up 30 points in the first half and go, okay, call it a day.
Right.
You pack it in. Jordan Mason, get out there. Christian McCaffrey run 15 times second half. Ice this clock and get out of here with no one hurt. And again, no one got hurt today. Week 2 is obviously 7 days away, but you leave this game and you sit back and you say, wow, I'm feeling very, very not just comfortable, but also confident in this team that the weapons everywhere on defense, offense, backup defensive ends. This team is so deep, and we weren't having those conversations 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, It feels like this game, and it's only one game, but it feels like all of the major questions you had about this team got answered in a positive way.
I can't think of one question I still have.
Maybe Colton McKivitz right tackle, but it is TJ Watt.
Right.
Maybe
All
Isaiah
pro going
Oliver,
against
and there's nothing there I can point to and say that sticks.
Yeah. We can get into it. An hour down here on overtime. 2 more hours to go on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, and Sterling Bennett with you. The Niners knock off the Steelers 30-7 in week number 1. The Niners go into Pittsburgh and hand the Steelers a lopsided loss. Niners 1-0 on the year. Again, a 30-7 win. Not really much went bad. What did you think? Hey, if you're listening from Pittsburgh, you were at the game, give us a call. Let us know what it was like being a Niner fan in Pittsburgh. 888-957-9570. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line, and hit us up on the YouTube chat as well. Time for a break. We're back with more overtime after a 30-7 Niners win right after this on 95.7 The Game.
Timeout.
momentum right back.
Now back to Overtime with Sterling Bennett, Alan Stiles, and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Overtime rolls on here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Grandy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett with you. The 49ers victorious 30-7 in week number 1 on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. A big reason, Christian McCaffrey, that highlight you just heard, Joe Davis, courtesy Fox, 65-yard touchdown run out of the gates in the second half. That was a moment where you felt a little bit of pressure on the 49ers offense. So the Steelers scored to end the first half, got it back to a 13-point game. If the Niners did not score to start the third, the Steelers could have cut it to a one-score game if they went down and scored. McCaffrey said enough of that. 65 yards to the house, and great downfield blocking by both Brandon Aiyuk and Ray McCloud also running down the field. 65 yards for Christian McCaffrey. And I think Steeler fans at Acrisure Stadium, not Heinz Field. It's not Heinz Field
it's
anymore.
Heinz. It's Heinz.
Acrisure Stadium.
It's the catch-up stadium.
And I think all of us here at 95.7 The Game watching at the studio were like, all right, that's it. That's the nail in the coffin. Niners back up by 20. There's still a ton of game left, but it just felt like that 65-yard touchdown run by Christian McCaffrey, it ended things.
It was Bill Paxton Aliens. Game over, man. Game over.
Yeah, well, and there wasn't a lot of hope, but Pittsburgh did grab that momentum, and you're thinking, all right, if they score here, you never know. Kenny was starting to look like preseason Pickett, and can't get it done. And then McCaffrey just comes out and just says, yeah, I think we're good here. I think we're solid. So again, 2 tone setters. Beginning of the game with that fourth down call, and then coming out of halftime. What are you going to do? You just gave up the touchdown. McCaffrey says, don't worry, guys. I got you. Puts the team on his back, as he's going to do multiple times throughout this season. And it was just sad. And I have no ties to Pittsburgh, so I have no problem seeing the sad faces. But they were so excited for
they had their chains on, ready to go.
Oh my gosh, their new quarterback. He's gonna take a step. We got the terrible towels. We're ready to go. This is our year. Pickens making highlight reel catches, and the Niners just literally ruined their day. Whenever your team can ruin another team's day, it's a good day in the NFL.
That spin move by McCaffrey off the line of scrimmage. It was a handoff to the left, spun off the edge, and then picked up some blocks. Aiyuk absolutely sent, I forget who it was.
Oh my gosh.
On Pittsburgh's defense. He sent him flying, and that sprung Christian McCaffrey for the 65-yard run. Was it Keanu Neal? No, it was DeMonte KZ who was
Craig's favorite player.
Flying. Yeah, shout out, former Atlanta Falcon. He went flying, and Christian McCaffrey did the rest, 65 yards to the house. That made it a 27-7 lead. The Steelers would not score in the second half at all. Game was over. Niners go on to win 30-7. But impressive display for the 49ers, coming out strong to start the first half and again in the second half. And all around, a fantastic performance for the 49ers. We should get into some areas where maybe there were some struggles. We'll get into that in a second. But first, let's go to the phones. Mitch in New Jersey here on Overtime. Mitch, you want to talk about someone on the defense, I see. Drake Jackson. What'd you think, Mitch, in the 49ers 30-7 win over the Steelers?
Boy, guys, I just think it was a great game, especially on defense. Love that line. Drake and Bosa, I'm glad they keep on it. I mean, I like all those guys, but I know you can't keep them all. When they drafted 4 defensive linemen in 4 consecutive years, and Bosa is like the best of the bunch. But I think Bosa and Drake, I think you got a great set of pair of defensive ends playing every play. I think it's awesome, and you can rest Bosa at times. It was a great game, great defensive battle.
Yeah,
it wasn't much of a game, right?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, 30-7, it was 20-0 early in the second quarter. The 49ers were dominant. Good call, Mitch, 100%. I mean, Drake Jackson is a major standout from this game. 3 sacks. He had a pretty good start to his year last year as a rookie, and then he was a healthy inactive for a number of times down the stretch of the season. Good to see him step up. And if he blossoms into a legit starter opposite Nick Bosa, this defense reaches a different level because they didn't have that phenomenal edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa last year. You also add in Javon Hargrave, who's maybe the best pass rusher not named Aaron Donald from the interior of the defensive line. Suddenly you have 4 guys who are legit guys on that defensive line. Oh my God. If Drake Jackson steps up, this defense is going to be incredibly difficult to score any points against.
Drake Jackson's first sack since week 6 against Atlanta last year. He had 3 sacks total last season. He had 3 today. He is this team's leading sack leader in week 1, mind you. But Drake Jackson, a lot to prove. A former second-round pick. Body fell apart towards the end of last season. But Trent Williams talked about how his body is built like an all-pro style player. And when you get praise from Trent Williams, a future Hall of Famer, and you come out and you show that in week 1, the confidence should be high for a young defensive player like Drake Jackson.
Well, and Drake Jackson is kind of the Niners special, right? We saw it with Kittle. These guys that drop a little bit because they get injured in college, and then they're able to get them. I mean, Drake Jackson
playing out of position at USC.
Exactly, and he gets injured. He was supposed to be a top pick.
Shout out Clay Helton.
The Niners
Shout out Lucas.
being able to get him. And look, I'm not going to say I was on the Drake Jackson bandwagon, but I will say that play in the preseason when he did the extendo arm and he almost got the pick, I'm thinking, I mean, you can see flashes, and if he continues to just elevate and get better and better, those answer some of the questions. What's so funny, Brandy? No. So what's so funny?
No. So you said I'm not on the Drake Jackson bandwagon. It's flashback to we're sitting there on the couch outside the studio watching the early slate of games, including the Niners. Any guy who pops up on the TV, you're like, oh, I'm so in on that guy.
I am in on that guy.
Stud.
Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Drake Jackson.
I'm in until I'm out.
The minute you saw Drake Jackson do a backflip into his pool, you said, that's my guy.
I'm all in.
That's my guy.
And
now you come out and say you're not on the Drake Jackson bandwagon?
Well, I'm part of it. I just didn't want to come off as if, hey, I'm grabbing all these guys.
You're riding the fence, man.
Hey,
jump on in.
When there's a guy, look, there are guys that need to take the next step, right? And like you talked about, Sterling, hey, who's going to be that opposite Nick Bosa? And you're hoping that he can be that guy. And we've seen some elevations here, and we want to continue to see it. So, yeah, maybe I am on the bandwagon. So what? I should be. You should be.
Yeah, no.
You should
well,
be.
then don't say you're not when you are.
I am. I'm on it. I shouldn't say I'm not. I wasn't leading.
You better be careful.
I wasn't leading it.
Get in the front of the bandwagon.
And now I'm at the front of it.
Okay.
I wanted to be. I just didn't want to come off,
Well, he's an athletic freak. He has the opportunity. I mean, and you consider who else is on that line. He's going to have the easiest matchup you could possibly dream of every single week, assuming that there's health on that defensive line.
Well, and again, you have Nick Bosa, who's probably going to get you 15-plus sacks this year. Then you have Drake Jackson, who already has 3. Well, the whole conversation was, can someone at least get you 6 or 8?
Exactly.
He's halfway there.
Exactly. So basically what you guys...
come on.
So we need more than 6 or 8 now.
Oh, yeah, but still.
What you guys are trying to say is that I call a home run for every pitch. I'm that guy.
And then you will be right sometimes because invariably it'll happen.
You're not wrong.
Hey, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Hey, Drake Jackson, look out for that guy. Brandon Aiyuk, technician.
Well, you're not wrong.
Technician.
You on the Brock Purdy bandwagon now?
I was riding dirty with Purdy.
Okay.
You were?
I didn't know how far we were going to ride.
How dirty you were going to get?
But we're riding now.
Okay.
That's a 3.
Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett. What did you think? Obviously, Drake Jackson was a standout, but there were a ton, really almost too many to name. Not many bad performances for the 49ers today, but what stood out to you? Let us know. Give us a call, 888-957-9570. Also hit us up on the Xfinity mobile text line, also 888-957-9570. We're also keeping an eye on the YouTube and Twitch chats. Twitch and YouTube powered by First NorCal Credit Union here on 95.7 The Game. All right, guys, we've been on the air for a little more than an hour. We've been pretty positive, as you should be. 30-7, the final score for the 49ers. Let's take a moment.
Let's get negative, Mark.
Let's talk about a couple of the things that maybe didn't go well for the 49ers. Obviously, coming into this game, one of the big questions was, how is the offensive line going to hold up? It's a similar group from last year, but you have a new right tackle in Colton McKivitz, and his first matchup of the season, maybe the most difficult one he's going to face all year, with TJ Watt generally rushing off the left side of the defense, the right side of the offensive line. And at times, he made McKivitz look pretty foolish. 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 strip sack that kind of ignited the crowd for a moment in the second half. I think all in all, the line was good. There were just a couple of moments there where it looked like McKivitz a little shaky on the right side.
My bigger concern to me, while yes, McKivitz struggled late in the game, he was pretty good early. Burford a couple penalties, Brendel a big penalty, pushed him out of field goal range. There's small things like that, even in a big win like this, where you point to and say, we can still improve. And for a team that has these aspirations of being a champion that actually is this good and can put up 30 points on you with those small little things, that's what separates you come January, and you have to get those things done. They got 17 weeks to do it, mind you, but it's small stuff like that where a field goal gets you a W in the biggest game of the year.
Well, and here's the thing. We're saying that it was a good W, right? Because you go in, it is a good W regardless. But what we don't know, because we can't know because it's only the first game of the season, we don't know if Pittsburgh was a little bit overhyped.
Maybe.
Right? We don't know that yet. So this game could look a bit different in a couple weeks if Pickett continues to be Pumpkin Pickett, right?
Yeah.
So if that continues and it just seems like, okay, the Steelers, they were a little overhyped and it just ended up not being their season. And on the other side, as the Niners move forward, if there's more pressure on Brock, there's more penalties, things like that, it's, okay, now Pittsburgh makes a little bit more sense. They just honestly weren't that good, and this offensive line does have some issues. And, and that's the other part of that when we're going a little bit more negative. And it's really not even a negative, when you have a job interview and they say, hey, what's something you could be better at? And you
What's
find
your
a way.
biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness is that I never know when to stop. I'm just such a hard worker. That's my biggest weakness. So
I'm
so
too
dedicated.
I'm too dedicated to my craft. And I saw a little bit of that early on. Throughout the game and even later in the game, right? When weirdly, because of the penalties, they had to throw the football. A little bit of hero ball from Brock that I wish I saw a little bit less of. Let's just get rid of the football. You're up 20 points, right? So that's one thing I saw a little bit of, but he's a gamer. That's what he's going to do. But hey, man, this game they can't do anything on defense. Just throw the ball away, get rid of the football. Because there are a couple times, Sterling, we're watching, and Sterling, we were both saying, dude, just let it go. Just let it go.
But that's Brock even in preseason. His first game, he's taking hits, and you're like, Brock,
please
throw the ball away, man.
Please.
But even today, there were a couple plays where his arm came into question. Is his arm okay after getting hit by, I think, TJ Watt after recovering his own fumble behind his back, which an amazing play by Purdy, but you're sitting there saying, his arm is in that pile.
Yeah.
Get it out of there.
Shaking out his wrist afterwards.
But it's small stuff like that. But could I argue that, the negative side of things, if you want to call it that, I would lean more towards the defense having the bigger questions still, if there is any.
Why?
Well, because, so you're playing a top 10 defense in Pittsburgh. You're playing one of the best defensive lines, TJ Watt, Highsmith, Hayward for half? Then you're playing the Rams next week, who aren't a really good team. They're playing now, but who cares? And then you have to play the Giants later and the Philadelphia Eagles, and Seattle's a good defense, whereas I can point to it and say, well, you also have to play against the Cooper Kupps later in the year. You have to play against Jalen Hurts and Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett and Metcalf, where I'm still looking at Ambry Thomas started, then got benched. Isaiah Oliver came in and played nickel cornerback to end the game. Who is this team's starting nickel cornerback? I have no idea. And if you can't rely on Thomas or Oliver, it's Womack, and then that's the only guy back there.
Yeah, that's the question defensively in terms of who's your normal starting 11, because you're set everywhere else.
You got 10.
Yeah.
Who's the 11th guy?
Diamador Lenore will be a starter. It's a question of whether it's opposite Mooney Ward at one corner spot or if it is at nickel. It's between, it seems like, Isaiah Oliver at nickel, which would push Lenore to the other corner, or it's Ambry Thomas at corner pushing Diamador Lenore to nickel.
Good the first, quarter and, a couple of drives. And that last drive, they said, get out of the game. We can't have you out there. You're a liability.
Right.
The only touchdown they allowed the whole game, and it was enough for them to be like, get out of here.
Which even Lenore himself, going back to penalties, 2 massive ones on that play. Late hit on the receiver, and then illegal touching and near the end zone. That could have given, this game could have been 30-0.
Yeah, and look.
Could have been 40-0.
Well,
50-0.
Well, at this point,
there?
They called off the dogs. And here's another piece of this. And it's not really a negative. I think, because, look, Kenny Pickett became famous for that fake slide when he was at University of Pittsburgh.
He's a choke artist.
I was expecting him. All right.
That came out of nowhere.
I was expecting him to run the football a little bit more to keep the defense a little bit more honest. He did not do that. He wanted to be pocket Pickett, and it did not work out.
Come on, dude.
I'm not going to stop. It's too easy. It's too easy. I'm not going to stop.
Polly Pocket Pickett at this point.
That's exactly what he was. That's exactly what he was today. So I'm looking forward here. Similar from Stafford. Daniel Jones, that game, Thursday night game, is it maybe a situation where, okay, he's a bit more elusive. He can run the football because you can extend plays, and that's where cornerbacks can kind of get left on an island because the game got wrecked for the Steelers so early. There wasn't very many situations where the nickel position was in a position where it could get exposed.
Well, Deontay Johnson got hurt in this game too, and
That's
Pittsburgh
true.
was getting momentum. Now, how much and how far would that have gone? But if Deontay Johnson, their starting slot receiver, plays and Isaiah Oliver struggles, we're sitting here saying you have to get that position taken care of by week 2.
Right.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp's not going to play, but again, you have Lockett and Smith and Jigba in Seattle. There are guys you're going to have to guard at that position where you're pointing to and saying if it isn't Oliver and maybe it's Lenore, then you have Thomas. Like, the nickel cornerback position wasn't really tested today.
No.
But it's something to keep back in your mind where in 2-3 weeks you're sitting back, you're saying it might be a liability if things go poorly.
Yeah, well, probably too early to start thinking this. The Niners certainly hope they have the solution in-house, but with the Nick Bosa contract, with all of the restructures they did elsewhere, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Eric Armstead, they suddenly have the most cap space in the NFL for this year.
$40 million?
So if there is a solution out there elsewhere, they have the ability to go out and do it. Now, probably not a multi-year thing because they don't have a ton of space next year. But if there's a corner, a nickel corner, a specialist, nickel corner specialist out there who's under contract for just this year, keep him on the Niners' radar because they have all of the resources they need to go out and acquire someone. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but if they're in a situation where they feel they need to make that move, it's the one real big hole they still have on their roster. They do have the ability to do that now.
So if you could only make one move between shoring up this nickel position and maybe shoring up the McKivitz situation, you would go with the nickel.
If I had to answer right now, probably I wouldn't do anything for at least a few more weeks.
Like 7 of them, maybe?
Until the trade
deadline?
Right. No, but I'm saying you had one move to make. You're going to make a move, and it's either
Kirk Cousins.
It's either to shore up the
you're
nickel.
gone.
Yeah, I'll get out now.
It's to shore up the nickel position or to shore up the McKivitz situation. You'd rather shore up the nickel position, and you think you're good with McKivitz.
I think it's the nickel for me.
Yeah, I think there's like the edge, or the tackle position. There's an easy way to negate a strong pass rush. Christian McCaffrey. When you're playing against Cooper Kupp's and elite slot receivers in the NFL, you have to line up against them every single play, and you can't really negate them unless you're bringing a safety down, which you might do. That. Maybe Jair Brown's the answer. He didn't play much today. Maybe he's an answer in-house, but like you said, Mark, $40 million in cap space. If they have to make a move way later in the season, the text line asked 510, how does Nick Bosa's contract open up so much space? Well, it's not just Nick Bosa's contract. It is restructuring Eric Armstead and Trent Williams and George Kittle, which frees up so much space to give them some flexibility as the season progresses.
Yeah, it's a lot of just contract and money jargon and weird vocabulary.
Money
but
moves.
Essentially, you guarantee a certain amount of money. You have a certain amount in a signing bonus that gets taken out from this year or next year. Like, for example, the Nick Bosa cap hits each year. It's low this year, low next year, and it jumps up to almost like $40 million in the future for one guy. So it's just extremely backloaded, and you're paying him $50 million out of the gate as a signing bonus, which comes out of your cap hit elsewhere. So you just got to trust us on it. It's really difficult to explain, especially over the radio, and it would be very boring radio. But they did a lot of maneuvering. Essentially, it comes down to Jed York's willingness to pay money up front
$80 million
right now, to pay it now, and to free up cap space later on, including this year for your team. So essentially, Jed York is willing to put his money where his mouth is and back up the best roster in football.
Well, and if we look at this big picture, right, and whether you're in the Super Bowl or bust camp or not, how can you watch this game today and not think, how many Niner fans, you can call it 888-957-9570, how many Niner fans, the game ended and you went online to see how much it would cost to go to Vegas? I mean, how can you watch what just happened and not think, and obviously barring injury, and not think that this team has got to do it? Has there, what other situation have you been in the Shanahan era where you felt like, hey, this is it, right? And I know
Michael Jackson.
And I know there are different levels. There are different levels of, okay, well, I think we can get it done this year, or hey, we definitely have a shot. You watch what you watch today. Who can keep their composure and say, hey, we got to see? I mean, there are level-headed fans out there. Don't get me wrong, but
we don't do that stuff here.
Any Niner fan who saw this today, I don't care what they're doing in Foxborough right now with the Eagles. I don't care. Look at what you just watched. Who is going to get in their way when they play like this? Who's going to do it?
Well, that's the thing is, it's not just about, they can get to the NFC Championship. This year and next year, knowing Nick Bosa's contract or his cap hit is so low, this is your 2-year window. Yes, it'll be longer than that, barring an injury, right?
Yeah.
But they have a 2-year window to maximize this thing. That was the entire offseason plan. Add elite players in certain positions, Javon Hargrave being the primary one to point to, getting Nick Bosa back being the other one. They have to win the next 2 years. And starting week 1, you're now 1-0. You're better than you were last year at this point, and that's a good thing to be at. And you point to it and say you can win next week. Week 3, you can win that one too. And we could be sitting here in a month saying this team is 4-0 with their best starts in 2019.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. I mean, the way that the contracts are structured, it's giving them flexibility, especially this year, but it will become increasingly difficult the longer you go, because that's when the gigantic numbers for Nick Bosa does creep in. In the sense of maybe things that didn't go great for the 49ers, and you guys can check me here, I might be out of line. This game, and we talked about it, they could have easily put up 40 if they really wanted to. It felt like there were some moments in the second half, specifically after the Christian McCaffrey 65-yard touchdown run. I know we all agree that is when it felt like the game was actually over. You go up by 20 in the third. You don't need to score again. Pittsburgh isn't even getting to double digits in this game. It kind of felt like the offense was stuck between two minds, whether they should try to add on more points or just kind of be conservative and kill some clock. It was a little cluttered offensively, it felt. And if we're trying to find holes in a 30-7 win, like, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to try to be really intricate with what you're doing. But it did feel like there was just a little bit of a disconnect on the offensive side, maybe late in that third quarter. I get it. The game was over, but it wasn't nearly as smooth in that quarter as it was in the first half.
Yeah, and Shanahan's a guy who he struggled with that, going back to his time with the Falcons. Do I continue to do what I was doing? Do I switch it up? So I think he did get caught up in that, but ultimately, and I know we're purposely trying to find the negatives here, but I do ultimately think that's a great problem to have. We're up by so much. Should we keep going or should we call off the dogs? And they get caught somewhere in the middle. Real quick, guys, Xfinity Mobile text line. I think we might have our text of the evening so far. 510, Moody for 3. Bang!
Wow.
Moses Moody?
Oh.
Later.
Wow.
Let the joke sit, Mark. Let the joke sit.
Yeah, my bad.
One thing I will say is it does bother me if they are being stuck in the middle of putting a game on ice or just kind of kneeling it out and letting Jordan Mason come in and run the ball. Why is Christian McCaffrey taking hits in the fourth quarter when you have Elijah Mitchell, who did come in late in the game, but if you're up by 23 and you seemingly have put it on film and say, we know this game is over, why are your stars still playing?
Don't get it.
Like that bothers me.
Don't get it. And even if you're up by so much, you don't want anybody to cough it up, but one fumble and you say, okay, let's go back to our starter, fine. You have a lot of leeway there, so I didn't really get that either.
But even then, say you win the game still, but someone gets hurt. You're sitting back saying, why did Kyle Shanahan leave XYZ player in?
Yeah.
And we're sitting here saying, we won, and now there isn't that but. You're sitting here saying, thankfully there isn't that, but hey, Kyle, you're up by 23 in the fourth quarter. Pull some guys out, please.
Seems like high risk and low reward at that point. But nothing happened that we know of, at least. Kyle Shanahan has talked. We will react to some of that sound coming up here on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. But time for a quick break. Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett with you, an hour and a half down. We're still with you here on 95.7 The Game. Let us know your thoughts. Joe in San Francisco, I see you. We'll get to you first thing on the other side. Stay on hold. We'll be with you in a little more than 5 minutes as Overtime continues after the Niners' 30-7 win over the Steelers in week number 1 right here on 95.7 The Game.
Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online.
Steelers, not a whole lot to smile about today. 30-7, 5.5 left.
Now back to Overtime with Sterling Bennett, Alan Stiles, and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Overtime continues here on 95.7 The Game after a Niners dominant win, 30-7 over the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road in week number 1. The 49ers, an impressive display to open the 2023 regular season. And yeah, you just heard from Joe Davis on Fox. Not only was the quarterback good, not only was the defense good, the kicker was good. Jake Moody, 3 for 3 on field goals.
Legatron.
Made all of his extra points. Niners win 30-7. Jake Moody, a big part of that, of course. Hopefully that will make Niner fans feel a little bit better about their special teams unit, because there were definitely some questions about that coming into this game. But Jake Moody, good. Niners win 30-7 over the Pittsburgh Steelers in week number 1. All right, as promised, let's go to the phones here. Joe in San Francisco has been holding on through the break. Joe, we really appreciate you holding on. You want to talk about Brock Purdy. Joe, what did you see from the 49ers quarterback today in week number 1?
Hey, gentlemen. Well, that was a good old-fashioned butt kicking. But the thing about Purdy, I want to say something slightly a little different I haven't heard of, but he's sneaky aggressive. He throws a nice soft pass. His timing is good. He sees the field. But what he does is he gives the big guys, Aiyuk and Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey, a chance to make a play. And that hasn't happened much over the past years. Go back to 2 plays last year. He throws a deep pass to McCaffrey in the end zone. McCaffrey makes a diving catch. I think it's against Tampa Bay. Tiptoes, taps, touchdown. Against the Cowboys, he throws it up the seam. The Kittle, one hand juggling, bumbling, stumbling catch. The pass to Aiyuk was a pass. It was a really nice pass, but it was an even better catch. Peterson was all over him. But he gives those guys, the quote skill players, chances to make a play. That it used to be a little 5-yard dink and dunk that we used to have here, and that I think that gives an expansion to the offense that the Niners haven't had before, because you rarely saw. These guys will go nameless. The previous quarterbacks attacking downfield. And I just think it's something that we don't really realize. He's kind of a small guy. He's throws a great ball, but he's aggressive. And I think that his teammates like him for that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Joe, good call. Appreciate you here on Overtime. I think the way he started the call saying Brock Purdy is sneaky aggressive. I think I agree.
Is it sneaky, though?
Maybe that's the one thing you disagree with. But I think there's a little bit of a misconception with Brock Purdy. There's all the conversation, it's just the system. He's just a dink and dunk quarterback. You've got all these weapons. He extends plays. He lets it rip. He fires it into a tight window. The back shoulder touchdown to Aiyuk. I mean, that was not open. That was incredible defense. But I think it was Patrick Peterson on that one as well, right?
And, so many tells.
And Purdy put it exactly where only Aiyuk could get it. I think I agree. Maybe you, Sterling, disagree that he is not sneaky aggressive. He's just straight up aggressive. But I think when you look at how the rest of the world, the rest of the country views him, they think of him as just the dink and dunk, take what the defense gives you guy. But I think he's a little more aggressive than what most people give him credit for.
Well, in this game specifically, I guess there's a difference between aggressive, and we've had the conversations about whether he's a gunslinger or not, or is he just really aggressive within this offense? And I would say the latter. I think he's really aggressive within this offense, which is exactly what you want. So if you go on, right, if you're not a Niner fan and you just watch the highlights from today, you're going to see the McCaffrey run, and then from Purdy, you're going to see all those slant routes to Aiyuk, and he's wide open. So I think nationally, you're still going to think, and then you're going to look at his stat line, which I think will continue. I think Purdy's going to continue to be underrated because his stat line is never going to be outstanding if they continue to get up early and with the running game that they have. But you're just going to see Purdy hitting Aiyuk on wide open slant routes. So I don't know. I don't know if, I guess, like I said, he rips it. He is very, I think I would say he is uber decisive instead of aggressive. I don't know, but I also don't know what aggressive looks like in this offense.
Yeah, but you see a quarterback that's not the biggest guy, doesn't have the best arm, and you point to and say, well, he's Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0. And then you watch him play and you go, he's nothing like Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, he's great over the middle in the intermediate game, fine. But there were 3 plays today. 3rd and 7 finds Debo after evading Minkah Fitzpatrick. The back shoulder touchdown to Brandon Aiyuk. There are other plays as well where the pump fake to Christian McCaffrey. Pump fakes, realize the play isn't there because the defender jumps in front of the route and finds Christian McCaffrey for 7 yards. Like, there's stuff like that where you point to and say, a couple years ago, that's a pick. A couple years ago, incomplete. A couple years ago, a sack. And today it's a touchdown, a first down, and a 5-yard gain where Brock Purdy does things that other quarterbacks in the past 5 years here have not done. And he's also doing things that the quarterbacks that are not here anymore in Trey Lance, you wanted him to do.
Right. Dare I say that Brock maybe suffers from, and I said this comparison a couple weeks ago in terms of how, again, and now I've add Tom Brady, and now I'm going to say Steph Curry, but in terms of how easy. No, listen to me. No, listen to me. When Steph shoots a 3, it looks easy. It looks like I could go out there and I could make 10 in a row. Then I go out there and I'm Brickmaster Flex, right? But when Purdy, the things that he does, he makes things that are off schedule look on schedule. Just like what you talked about, Sterling. If you're sitting on your couch watching and you see that play to McCaffrey, you might think, just another dink and dunk to McCaffrey.
5-yard gain, whatever.
But if you really break it down, and I'm sure JT O'Sullivan in the QB school will do this, you'll see that wasn't where he wanted to go at first, and he made something out of nothing. So I think that the weapons on top of Kyle Shanahan makes things easier for Purdy, but I also think there's a piece of this where he makes things look easy. So it does seem like his job is actually easier than it actually is.
Maybe where there's this disagreement or the disconnect in how some people view Purdy and how other people do, it's because of what Niner fans are used to and conditioned to seeing from their quarterbacks, right? So, I mean,
Nick Mullins.
Money Mullins.
Jimmy Garoppolo I don't want to say never, rarely would wow you with an incredible decision, an incredible throw.
Yeah.
You see someone in Brock Purdy come out who doesn't seem incredibly, in a similar way. He's not going to wow you with a physical tool.
There's no real physical gifts there.
100%.
He's quick,
and
he's decisive.
I'd give him. No. I was going to say speed wise. Yes. I would give him above average speed.
Yeah, 100%. But you're used to a quarterback who, I don't want to say they're the same guy, but they're relatively similar in the way in which they're effective.
Sure.
It's good decision making, quick decision making, hitting the short route in motion on the money, and so maybe what 49er fans are feeling is, hey, this is a little bit different in terms of the aggressiveness than what we're used to seeing, but in the he's not Patrick Mahomes level aggressive, of course, because no one is that level of aggressive. And
all I know is one team's on 1 right now, and it's not San Francisco.
Sometimes it doesn't help Kansas City. He threw a lot of interceptions last year, Mahomes did. But maybe part of it is just we're shaded in our viewing and our expectation of Brock Purdy because of who we as Niner fans are used to seeing quarterbacking this team.
Yeah, and I think people in general like to put other people into a box, right? And when you look at different quarterbacks, you're either a pocket passer or you're a running quarterback, a dual threat guy. And someone like Brock Purdy, you can't really put into a box right now, right? I mean, you could use, I don't know if he's a gunslinger or not. It depends on your definition of gunslinger, but okay, he plays within the system, but he makes off-schedule throws. He doesn't have a cannon, so I don't really know if he is a gunslinger, but he breaks down. So we always try to do comparisons and put and we've tried, whether it's, people just look at his size and they'll say a Drew Brees or just because of his size and things like that. But I think Purdy is a bit unique because he's good at a lot of different things. I actually don't even know what I would say he's great at besides the fact that the way he game plans and the way he processes, that might be his greatest attribute. And number 2 might be his elusiveness. And then you start going down. And those are things that, when you talk about going to combines or showcases, those things are not combine traits or those things are not showcase traits. So you don't look at them the same way you look at arm, speed, things like that. So that's why I think Purdy gets viewed. And you're just a little bit confused when you watch him because you're like, that's really good. I'm not really sure what was really good about that, but that's really good.
Today he had no passing plays that were turnover worthy, in my opinion.
None.
Maybe one to Peterson over the middle.
How many tip balls were there anyway?
There was a couple, but I don't know if that was on him, is what I'm saying. To me, what separates Brock Purdy from previous quarterbacks here, or even, guys who are ranked, 12 through 17, is that he can push the ball down the field, not 60 yards, not like Mahomes and Allen, but like today, Brandon Aiyuk, back shoulder fade in the end zone, and there was no space, but he found some area to make a nice play. What he does is 15 yards over the middle, then a splash play. Whereas there may be 10, 5, 7, whatever it is, 5-yard receptions, 7-yard receptions, but then boom, here it comes.
Right.
And we talked about earlier in the offseason, do teams fear Brock Purdy? I think Pittsburgh did today.
Well, you just brought up a good point, Sterling, because Tomlin said we're more so scheming against Kyle Shanahan than Brock. And people said, well, that's bulletin board material for Brock. Again, another chip on the shoulder.
There's a lot of bulletin board material for Brock.
I don't know what were the Steelers. Talk about too much dip on your chip. I mean, you had a good what are you guys doing? I mean, seriously? Now you're walking back with your tail between your legs. I mean, what was...
No, towel between your legs.
Thank you. That was very good. Very good.
That's a 4. That's a
good one. That's the best one of the day so far, much to my chagrin. So I don't
keep trying, Alex.
I will. I just don't understand what their process was, their thought process, and then going back to Purdy and whether you have to scheme against Shanahan or Purdy. Yeah, again, in Tomlin's mind, that play when Purdy shook off Minkah Fitzpatrick, that's not scheming against Shanahan. Okay, you actually schemed that correctly because you had him dead to rights. But Purdy, that's a play right there where Purdy just took it to Tomlin and said, yeah, you can scheme as much for Shanahan, but you can't scheme against that.
Yeah, no, and you have, just a capable quarterback with what Kyle Shanahan has the ability to scheme up considering the weapons. You're going to have to plan for that somehow, and it's difficult to because there's so many different ways that Brock Purdy is able to go out and beat you, which is what's so impressive because he's so comfortable given just, I can't even imagine what should be running through your mind. But, I got McCaffrey on one side, I got Debo and Kittle, and then Aiyuk over the middle. I wouldn't know where the hell to go with the ball.
Be overwhelmed with decisions.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like any of them are necessarily bad decisions, certainly on a certain route. Some of them are going to be covered up more than others. And you have your first read, you have your second, you have your third, you have your dump off in the flat, if it's use check or whoever it is. I would be overwhelmed in a good way because you have so many options and you have so many reliable options. It's really impressive, his composure. Everything, whether it's a blitzer coming free, we already talked about that, where he sensed it, spun away, ran to the left, made a throw to Debo for a catch, but it's also just knowing where to go with the ball on any given time. That play you talked about earlier, where I forget who it was that was covered up on the first read, he kind of wanted to throw there, pulled it back, and then threw over the middle to McCaffrey. His ability to just make the smart play like that, what we have, I think, seen and learned from Brock Purdy is it's rare that he makes the play that sinks you.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like he will make fantastic plays as well, but it's not like he's going to be going out here throwing 50-yard bombs every game. That's not who he is, and it's not really what this offense is. But he rarely makes the mistake that kills you. And it's sometimes what killed the Niners with Jimmy Garoppolo, because he would lock in on a target over the middle, throw right between the numbers to Bobby Wagner in the middle of the defense. Like, it's just simply what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy doesn't make those kinds of mistakes.
But I think that is why there is an argument about Purdy and how much of it is Purdy and how much. Now, today, there wasn't a lot of Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, only 3 catches. Yeah. But you did even see, and I think that's where some of the naysayers had some things to say, because before Jimmy did get hurt, it didn't look like this, no, but you also didn't really see the Jimmy no throws because you have the ultimate escape valve in Christian McCaffrey. So you can't have that conversation and say he doesn't make any terrible decisions or hasn't. Right. Now, I don't think it's all Christian McCaffrey, but I do think knowing that, it's almost as if, hey, I would look like an idiot here if I forced this when I have Christian McCaffrey.
I find it funny that we spent the entire offseason debating quarterback 2 and 3 here in San Francisco. We sat back and Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, who is it, and whatever. But we spent all that time debating it when in reality, it didn't matter. Like every time Brock Purdy has come out on the field, he looks like the starting quarterback. He can play for 20 other teams. And it's funny to me that throughout the entire offseason, and look, Brock Purdy to the day is 6 months removed from surgery. Like, he should not be doing this right now. He shouldn't be playing week 1, but he is. And he's playing at a high level. making good decisions, hitting amazing throws to Brandon Aiyuk in the end zone, scoring 2 touchdowns, leading an offense that has put up the most points in the NFL thus far. Like, what Brock Purdy's doing, if you ain't bought in now, my goodness, hop on Allen's bandwagon and ride this thing to the end.
Hop on. There's plenty of room. There's always going to be room.
Hey, Jacksonville put up 31, actually.
Oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, sorry.
Fact check it.
I just got a fact check.
Save that for during the break.
The Indianapolis
That
Colts.
doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Fair enough. All right, let's go back to the phones here. Jeff in Michigan wants to weigh in, and I'm actually glad Jeff's going to bring this up. I wanted to bring it up, but it slipped my mind until this point. Jeff, what's up? What'd you see from Brock Purdy and company today in Week 1?
Well, we saw a great game, and like I said, I wanted to bring up the Ringer putting him at 32 in the quarterback ranking behind Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, Kenny Pickett, and pretty much every other quarterback in the NFL. So what do you guys think of that? I mean, have you guys ever seen a QB that went to the NFC Championship game get so much disrespect in the offseason?
No, Jeff, that's a fantastic question. I feel like normally, almost no matter what the quarterback is, who it is, it could be a guy who has done nothing in his career. You're going to be ranked ahead of the rookies. Yeah, generally is what happens.
Well, for 30-13, not to get too in the weeds, but was this just a writer's take, or wasn't there an equation that they used to come up with this, or is this someone else? Because I know I looked at different ones, and I've seen Brock ranked 17. Yeah. I've seen him 15. So I know all it takes is one. I mean, we know Michael Jordan. You could find something, and being 32, it doesn't really matter. If your metric has Brock, I guess the thing is, it doesn't matter whether it's metrics or not, because if your metrics have Brock at 32, your metrics are wrong.
It's science.
Something is wrong there, because I don't know how you have him dead last. But again, that's probably how Brock likes it, to be completely honest. I mean, he's kind of undersized. Really, it's more about his stature versus his actual height. I don't think he's not tall, but he's not tiny like Kyler Murray or anything like that. But he's slightly undersized at the quarterback position. Even though he went to a Power 5, he's still Mr. Irrelevant. So Brock, at some point, whenever he does get the notoriety that he probably wants or doesn't want.
Will that ever happen, though?
Well, probably not, because of a couple reasons. Because if the Niners keep on getting ahead,
now they have to win.
Exactly.
Mind you.
I don't know how comfortable Brock would feel with people saying that he is the guy, because it's never been like that in his career, right? I mean, what was it on? I just finished watching Varsity Blues. When you go from being the bench warmer to the starter, oh, okay. And I think Brock would be fine either way. But I think he likes having that chip on the shoulder. And when you see him make a run like he did, and he's doing the first down, I mean, look,
I love that.
Talk your talk, and he deserves to do that. So I think Brock likes it, and I think Shanahan likes it. I have a guy who's going to continue to work his tail off, and the way we're built, he's always going to be a bit underrated, because we're not going to be in very many shootouts, because we're not going to need to be. It's almost a perfect situation.
Do you think that the system in which he plays and with the weapons he has, and like his stat line today, what was it? 220 yards through the air, 19 of 29, 7.6 yards per attempt, and 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Rather underwhelming performance when it comes to yards and attempts. Like, that's going to be his stat line the majority of games.
That's what it was last year.
Right. And so, but we saw that when the going got tough, he made good plays, won 2 playoff games, beat the number 2 defense in football with the Dallas Cowboys last year. Could I argue that the system in which he plays in would be his biggest strength, but him getting the credit he might deserve might be his biggest weakness?
But we've had the same conversation with Jimmy, right?
No, Jimmy was ranked. People were talking. He's a top 10 quarterback following 2019. This head coach said, "No Tom Brady, I want Jimmy G." Could Shanahan's system, for as great as it is, and look, this team is going to win double-digit games this year. Purdy's going to look good, or we hope he does look good in every game this year.
Just to the call, the ranking that the caller was referring to, the Ringer NFL quarterback rankings, Brock Purdy 32nd. The only 2 starters behind him, Sam Howell and Josh Dobbs, according to this ranking.
That's like disrespectful.
It's crazy.
Quarterback straight ahead of him, C.J. Stroud, rookie. Desmond Ridder, Falcons, who's a second-year player, but in his first year as a starter. Baker Mayfield of Tampa Bay. Anthony Richardson, rookie. Bryce Young, rookie. Kenny Pickett, who he just outperformed. Justin Fields, Jordan Love, and so on and so forth.
Well, then it becomes the question here, and that's why we kind of mentioned Kenny Pickett missing on some of the on-schedule throws, because then it becomes a question, and I've done it, I'm guilty of doing it. well, what would X quarterback look in this system? And we saw Kenny Pickett miss on throws where it doesn't matter your system, doesn't matter your guys. You missed an open man, right? So that's where I think Brock will continue. To answer your question straight up, Sterling, yes, I think so. But I also don't think it's only a Brock Purdy thing. Yeah. Tom Brady, who was the GOAT, had to go to Tampa Bay and win another one because people were saying, is it Belichick? And we now know it was not Belichick. So I agree. I think he'll always be a bit underrated unless we're talking a couple Lombardis.
Right.
Here's a comp, and he also was on his rookie deal. After Russell Wilson won that first Super Bowl, right? Did anyone call Russell Wilson elite? I don't think so. It was, don't mess things up. We have an elite defense. So I think, and I don't think he was putting up numbers like this though. Right? He was scrambling a little bit. He was not messing things up. So if they go out and they win the Super Bowl, I think one Super Bowl in this system, I think there could still be some naysayers out there. You start stacking up Lombardis, I think it gets real quiet, right? I mean, we know the Trent Dilfer, we know those comps. So again, I think that there'll always be somebody if Brock's always in the system. But that's what happens across sports. I mean, Tom Brady's dealt with it. Mahomes dealt with it. Hey, without Tyreek, what's he gonna do? So
yeah,
but if we're comparing the ratios, like how good are they versus how underrated they actually are, I think the gap will be bigger with Brock, to your point, than it will be with some other QBs.
Am I wrong to just say straight up I don't really care? Because he's...
Well, if you win, who cares, right?
Exactly. I mean, he's in this system. He has an incredible scheme drawn up for him by maybe the best offensive mind in the league, he has maybe the best group of talent around him. He's in a position to succeed, and frankly, nationally, I don't care if people give him the credit.
And they don't care either. I don't think inside that locker room they don't care. Like I'm telling you, man, they prefer it this way. Right? Now, here's the thing though. You can't think that Purdy is terrible and have the amount of people that have the Niners at least in the Super Bowl or winning it as nationally. So I don't really care about the 33rd team. I don't think there are a lot of people that think Purdy is the 32nd best quarterback. I just think that, to your point, I don't know how many people think that Purdy is, could he get, if we're saying top 15, should he be there now? Maybe we just need to see more, right? It's been, what do we say? This is his ninth game in total, right? Eighth that he's finished.
Start.
So maybe that's what it is. So I don't know. I hear what you're saying. I think there will always be that. But to your point, let's say they don't win a couple, right? Let's say they get really close like they've been doing, but you got to pay Purdy. You end up paying Purdy and there's no more Debo, right? There's no more whoever else, Kittle, whoever. And now you got to go out there. You're worth more. When you pay these quarterbacks more, we're paying you to cover what you're missing.
At that point, is Purdy's price tag the reason why we think he's so good? Like if he was making,
he's definitely the best value out there.
If he was making $10 million this year and put up 222 yards or 220 yards and got 2 touchdowns,
that's a great
and
point.
You won, is it like we need to upgrade a quarterback
that's
here?
A great
when
point.
you're 8-0 with the guy.
Why'd you choose $10 million?
That's
what Trey Lance is making.
You know why I picked it?
I don't know.
I think it's hard to have the conversation about Brock Purdy without mentioning the story. And I think that's what gets tough about this. But I think objectively we'll get to a point where it's that dude's just good.
Yeah, and he was good today. Helped lead the 49ers to a 30-7 win on the road in a tough environment. Pittsburgh is not an easy place to play. The Niners at times for much of the game made it look easy. 30-7 the final score. Niners beat the Steelers, a quality football team, by 23 points and made them look not quality at all throughout that entire game. All right, 2 hours down here on overtime. We've got one more hour to go. If you want to get in line, call now, 888-957-9570. We have some sound from Kyle Shanahan after the game addressing the media. We'll get to that and more. It's overtime with Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett. More coming up after this on 95.7 The Game.
O'Reilly. Do you need new wiper blades but aren't sure which ones are right for you?
95.7 The Game.
Welcome back to Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you along with Alan Stiles and Sterling Bennett. The San Francisco 49ers dominant in their Week 1 game on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 30-7 is the final score. This game got out of hand a little bit early. The 49ers scored 20 before Pittsburgh scored for the first time to close the first half. Niners opened the second half with a long touchdown run, 65 yards by Christian McCaffrey. Not only, guys, did the 49ers dominate the game as a whole, but it felt like the moments where this game was up in the air the most, they were at their very best. They come out immediately in the first half. They score. They get a stop, a 3-and-out. They go down methodically, score a touchdown to Brandon Aiyuk, where the game got a little bit hairy to begin the second half. McCaffrey, 65 yards to the house. Every time they felt just a little bit of pressure, a little bit of push from Pittsburgh, the crowd got into it just a little bit. They answered every single time. I think that's a trait and a characteristic of all really good Super Bowl quality teams, is when you are facing those kinds of moments. And I'm not going to try to pretend like a 20-7 game in week number 1 is, you got to score here or it's season over.
Right.
But it was, of what happened in this game, that was one of the more important moments, and they answered immediately. Those kinds of answers are characteristic, I think, of teams that tend to go deep in the postseason. It was good to see that early in the year on the road, answer the bell when their team needed it, and it's a big reason why they came out on top 30-7 in week 1.
Yeah, I think ultimately what was clear about the Niners versus the Steelers is that the Niners had something to prove. And when you have some of the adversity that they had during this offseason, I mean, we were having conversations who had a more toxic offseason, the Niners this past season or the Warriors last offseason, right? Because it was a conversation. And I think that the Niners wanted to prove that even though some things went down that was it wasn't in any of the players' control. They can't control what happens with Trey. They can't control Nick Bosa's deal getting done. They can't control, Jake Moody can control whether he can kick a field goal straight or not. So I think that they all were on one page and they said, look, man, we have an opportunity. We're not going up against some trash team. This is a team that a lot of people think are going to take the next step, and we can dead all that right now, and we can dead all the talk about, is this team on the same page? And look, I've been critical of Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a great coach, but I am critical about him in terms of, all right, it can be a little prickly at times, a little smug at times, but everything that that's just me personally. Everything that we've heard is that Kyle Shanahan is a player's coach, and players go to bat for him. And, as we say, Sterling, went from the show me state, don't tell me. And the Niners went out today and they showed Shanahan is our guy, right? And things got a little bit squirrely, but Brock Purdy's our guy too. And we're going to go out and we're going to play our butts off for him and show everybody just exactly where we're at.
Knowing how slow this team has started the past 2 seasons, 3-5 and 4-4, and knowing how last year ended, I did wonder how they were going to begin the season. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh, probably the tougher opponent of the past 3 week 1s they've had, and a team in Pittsburgh that is usually ready to go. Mike Tomlin, one of the best coaches in football and well-respected all over the entire country, and Kyle Shanahan's dapping him up pregame because he respects him so much. And so I was wondering how this game was going to go. How was the offensive line going to hold up? How was the defense going to play in Steve Wilkes' debut? And they passed with flying colors, maybe minus Colton McKivitz. And I do think that any wonder or any thought of, last year was so emotional, how's his arm going to hold up? There's no more questions. This team is ready to go, and they hit the ground running. Yeah,
and I think it might be almost a different feeling for Niner fans. This Super Bowl window has been open for a couple years now. Mm-hmm. But there's always been some caveats. Okay, we got a Super Bowl roster, but can Jimmy get it done? Okay, right. We got a Super Bowl roster, but what's going on with Trey Lance? Okay, with this, or Kittle gets injured, or somebody goes down, and now the season is done, which is how they were able to get some of these high picks and things like that. This is the first time, you get into the weeds with the nickel or whatever the case is, but the big question marks, there are none. And I think some Niner fans don't really know how to react to that. And I know everybody is going to be tuning in for a Victory Monday tomorrow to all of our shows on the station. And we have certain hosts that the sky is always falling. We all have friends and fans that are the pessimistic fan. Even the most pessimistic fan, what are you going to be pessimistic about right now? It's pretty darn tough.
Yeah. It's like, shouldn't we be looking for something wrong? Like the past 3, 4, 5 years has been, there's always something negative happening, and now it's like, everything's fine, everything's okay, and we're 1-0, and everything looks perfect.
Which is why I think this game, it feels so good for me personally, just emotionally, because as a fan of this team, this offseason, while it wasn't disastrous by any means, it was kind of difficult to go through.
It was getting there, though.
It was
right. What if Nick Bosa hadn't signed?
If the Bosa holdout cost him a game or two, that would have been disastrous. It was just awkward. It was difficult. It was strange. It was all like Kyle Shanahan didn't want to call it weird, but it was weird.
It was weird.
Right?
Yeah.
It was unique and weird. Kyle Shanahan, it could be both things. And just for this team to be able to put all of that behind them and come out and dominate early on and then continue it into the second half, answer Pittsburgh's touchdown with one of their own, it just felt like, rebirth isn't the right word, but it just felt like, all right, we're starting new. Mm-hmm. Like all of the strangeness, that's in the past.
Exactly.
This is an elite football team with aspirations of winning a Super Bowl. To hell with your Brock Purdy is a 7th-round rookie second-year quarterback story. He's just a system guy. Like, to hell with that. This is the most talented roster in the National Football League, and they started the season like that. It's emotionally cleansing because you just put all of that difficulty in the offseason behind you, and now you can finally see why the team had the offseason that they did. Because the guys that they have out there right now are clearly really good at playing football.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you would call. I guess you could say it was the Trey Lance era. It was a couple years, but it was really kind of connected to the
really
not really, because I'm just basically we knew the Jimmy G era was ending, right?
Yeah.
We thought it was going into the Trey Lance era. It kind of got stuck in the mud, never really got there, and today, more so than last year because Brock was filling in. Mm-hmm. Today felt like, to your point, Mark, the birth of a new era. The same window, but just, hey, this is the next iteration of that window. We had decided, or we as in the Niners had decided, Jimmy can't take us there. Trey can't take us there. We are starting fresh, and this is our first look at this new piece, this new era in this same window with Brock leading the charge.
It was almost like Nick Bosa re-signing kind of baptized this team in a new attitude of, coming in, like Trent Williams said, that was hanging over the locker room's head. And Nick Bosa didn't do much today on the box score, but we know when Nick Bosa's out there, there's more confidence in this team. Having the reigning defensive player of the year on your side does change your attitude, and you can tell the minute Nick Bosa signed, Fred Warner's out there yelling and screaming, just being overjoyed in himself, and you can see the attitude and the mindset almost shifted of, okay, like, we can do this thing now. We're all together now. We're not missing a piece, and we have a championship mindset, and we're going to go out there and show that week 1. And 30-7, you're leading your division now, and you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah. And I would also say that Nick Bosa not doing too much, Niners don't really mind that. To me, it's a win. Because, hey, don't try to as much as we know you were working out and you have your whole setup with your brother, we don't need you to do too much. And I think it's good that Nick Bosa didn't try, right? Wasn't a try hard in that situation. Hey, we're in control. It's not TJ Watt's doing his thing. I need to get out here and do my thizzle as well. I know I'm just going to chill. Let's just get this W and let's get out of Dodge healthy. So I would say that was a huge victory for the Niners. Because we're not out of the woods yet. I would say these next... I'd say these next 4 or 5 games, if Nick Bosa, something were to happen, people would say, you should have been in the building. But I do think that getting through this first game, now it's okay. He's back. He's working out with the team. If you hope nothing happens either way, but I think you can maybe close the book a little bit, maybe one more week, and then you close the book on, you should have had him in the building, should have signed him, and it's just, hey, he's there, he's healthy, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? After the difficulty of the offseason, the strangeness of the offseason, all of the drama, what was watching this game like for you? Because for me, it was just emotionally cleansing, a fresh start for this 49er team, which we all hope is a Super Bowl team. What do you think? Give us a call, 888-957-9570. That's also the Xfinity mobile text line. And we're keeping an eye on the Twitch and YouTube chats powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Really, really nice beginning for the 49ers. Let's hear from the head coach, Kyle Shanahan, who talked about the start of the game, the 3-and-out forced by the defense, the offense going down there and scoring, and then opening up a 20-point lead in the first half. Here's Kyle Shanahan postgame.
It opened up as good as you could hope for. I thought it was about 28 minutes of really good football and then 2 minutes of really bad football. Just the offense not coming up with points there at the end, just even giving it back to them. And then us not getting that short yardage, the 2 penalties we had, and them scoring at the end of the half put a little damper on it, but it was awesome. We came out, got the ball back, and answered on that first drive, and pretty smooth sailing from there.
Classic coach, right? 28 minutes of greatness, and he's focusing on the 2 minutes of struggle. But
hey,
I mean, it's what you have to focus on because you were fantastic otherwise. You got to nail down those final 2 minutes of the first half. But he's right. I mean, they were incredible to begin. And then really the first major mistakes the 49ers made were in those final couple of minutes of the first half. I mean, there was a hold, I think, on Burford early during the Niners 20-0 beginning of that first half. But, I mean, Shanahan's correct. It was a fantastic beginning. A little shaky there to end the first half, but they bounced back as well.
Well, yeah, and look, that's what you have to focus, and this is the goal. The goal was to win week 1, but we know what ultimately the goal for this team is. So he's gonna pick and find all these things. The YouTube chat guys, I think we got the comment of the day from Golden State Lakota, Drake Saxon.
I like that.
Sterling, not impressed?
I like Damon's domination sensation.
Well, sure.
That's a buck.
Sure. Drake Saxon. I'm into that.
We have Legatron and Drake Saxon now.
I would take Drake Saxon over Legatron.
What?
Well, you have to actually boot something to be Legatron.
He made a 41-yard field goal.
I don't see you making field goals, Alan.
No, you're not trying to nickname me Legatron.
And you got a boot on right now.
Not trying to nickname me Legatron.
Yeah, how far could you kick a ball with that boot on your foot?
Probably very far.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like 10 yards.
I could do some damage.
You can barely walk, my friend.
Well,
I can run around.
Speaking of Legatron, Jake Moody, Kyle Shanahan did talk about his rookie kicker after the game. Here he is.
We've felt so good about him in practice every day. He's been great. You know, he had a couple struggles in the preseason game and then got hurt, but he healed a lot faster than we expected, so he's been pretty good here in practice, and we still want to see it in the games and get in the delay of game at first. We did that just to make it harder for him, and he looked great there, and it continued through the whole game, so he did a hell of a job today.
Do you buy Kyle Shanahan saying that they felt good about Jake Moody the entire offseason?
Well, I guess in training camp, he was
hitting like 66-yarders in training camp.
That's Legatron.
It's the same guy.
Well, you got to do it in real life.
He didn't get a chance yet.
Is Kyle Shanahan saying that there wasn't a moment of doubt in the preseason when he couldn't make anything?
I mean, look, I guess to be fair,
I was very doubtful.
It's not an issue. It's not an issue until it's an issue, and he hadn't missed in a real game. So until you miss in a real game,
you cannot tell me the fact that they drafted this kid 3rd round.
Oh, there's so much writing on this pick.
The 3rd highest drafted kicker since 2005, and they were like, yeah, we love him missing field goals in preseason. There's no worry at all.
No, but let's not forget that the second preseason game he did right the ship a little bit. They were little waggly, right, and wiggly, but they still got in. So
getting waggly. It's like a dog's tail.
Sure, maybe there was I wouldn't say zero doubt, but I don't think Shanahan thought the sky was falling until, I'm telling you, as we're all watching the game with that extra point and we're all holding our breath, Kyle Shanahan was definitely holding his breath. I will give you that.
All right, so Niners are up 7-0. They force another 3 and out. They get the ball back. Their drive stalls out of the 23-yard line. 4th and 7, first quarter, you lead 7-0. Out trots Jake Moody for a 41-yard field goal. He made it. What happens if he misses that?
Going forward on 4th down every single play.
Yeah. Well,
or punting.
But honestly, do you think at that point, it's still so early in the game, but I think that, again, you have a defense that's just flying around, and Pickett hadn't looked good. I think it would be not great, but I don't know, man. I mean, the Niners were just a better. This is a hard one because the Niners were just a better team than Pittsburgh. They were just better. I just want to know. I want to fast forward and see if Pittsburgh is and they can improve throughout the season. But this is obviously going to be it will always be a really good win for the Niners, how everything added up. But I am curious at the end of the season where Pittsburgh is. And they're going to improve, but I am curious whether the whole dark horse thing was real or did we just overvalue preseason and Kenny Pickett doing what he did.
It's going to be tough, too, because they play Cleveland on Monday, then Las Vegas in 2 weeks. So you may not get the answer in the first month of the season.
Yeah.
And San Francisco could be 3-0 playing the Steelers, the Rams, and the Giants. And so you may not know how real the Steelers win actually is, but if we're sitting here 3-0,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
We'll ask JD, John Dickinson, who was out in Pittsburgh. He's going to join us in about 12 minutes, around 3:30 here on 95.7 The Game on Overtime. Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett. He was there at Acrisure Stadium, not Heinz
Mark,
Field.
that's not it.
Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We'll ask him what he thinks. Is this a quality Pittsburgh team, or did the Niners just beat up on a so-so football team? We'll ask him that and ask him about the vibes there inside the stadium, because the Niners, it just felt like, took the life out of the Pittsburgh crowd early in that ball game. And they'll ask him about what was said post-game as well. Speaking of post-game, one more from Kyle Shanahan. One of the biggest stories heading into the game, obviously, was Nick Bosa. Is he going to sign? Is he going to play? Is he going to be on a snap count? He was out there and he had an impact, but he didn't have a classic Nick Bosa moment. But really, it did not matter. Here's Kyle Shanahan talking about Nick Bosa and the plan they had for him in Week 1.
Yeah, that made it a lot easier. You know, our number was between 30 and 40. That's what we said going in. But that was, hopefully we can keep it there, and that's what we were going for. We made it a little easier with some of the 3 and outs, and that's why we kept him out there at the end for most of it.
So because it was an easy day for the defense, you didn't face very many snaps because you didn't allow first downs. It allowed Bosa to play almost every single play. So,
until that last drive, what were they sitting at? The Steelers were sitting at 1 offensive yard.
1 yard.
I mean, that's unheard of. So that, you know what? To be honest, going back to the conversation of, myself, not to contradict myself. Oh my gosh, what are the Steelers going to be in a couple? It doesn't matter, man. 1 yard and the
15 plays
and the half is almost over, and then you kind of get a little bit softer, and like how Shanahan talked about, not great, but also, hey, human nature, we're kind of owning you right now. 1 yard. It doesn't matter what the Steelers end up doing. This is an NFL game, in this era of NFL where it's so offensively driven. 1 yard with Kenny Two Gloves and that high-powered offense. Come on, man.
The San Francisco 49ers made the Pittsburgh Steelers want to rebuild.
Yes.
Like, we don't believe in Kenny Pickett anymore.
Right.
We have to find a new quarterback, put in Trubisky. Like, it was at a point where they were booing their own team in Week 1.
Where's Mason Rudolph?
Oh, where's Myles Garrett? Oh, God.
YouTube chat, Rafael Fernandez, this is a joke. We in the NFL, we went into Pittsburgh with the great defense full of stars, and you guys are already putting an asterisk. Not sure what you're listening to, Rafael. I don't know what asterisk we're putting, but...
The Niners stink, right? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Worst team in football.
I don't know what asterisk we're putting there.
I think regardless
The Mike Tirico one, right?
Oh, man. He's catching heat for that. Regardless of how you actually think of Pittsburgh right now, and maybe it does change moving forward, maybe they're just not a very good football team. They were really good to end last season.
Yeah.
I mean, what were they? They were like 3-8, and then
they were really bad.
Maybe 4-7, something like that, and they won, I think, the final 4 or 5 of 6 to close the season. They were playing really good football, and that coincided with when Kenny Pickett took over as the starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. They didn't get worse this offseason, I don't think. They didn't really make...
Their defense got better. They remade their entire linebacking core. They brought in Keanu Neal.
This is a quality football team, and I will stick to my guns. The number of people I heard, not only just on this station, but across the nation, picking the Steelers to win this game.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people doing that. The Niners made them look incredibly foolish. 30-7?
I was nervous to come into this game, and maybe some of it's being gamemanship. I want to give the opponent a chance, right? No one wants to come on and say, Niners are going to win 30-7. It's like, okay, like, let's take a step back and be realistic here.
I was thinking like 24-13 or something like that.
And if he even said, Pittsburgh wins 24-27 in a tough game because the defenses play so well, okay, like, I could buy into that. I myself can agree with you there, but San Francisco said, no. Like, come on.
This is the most talented team in the NFL. They're going to lose to this Pittsburgh team?
Well, I had said, if Nick Bosa doesn't play, I would pick the Steelers. Mm-hmm. And even that, I don't even know if that probably doesn't even stand. I think the Niners probably win without Bosa anyway. Yeah. I mean, he's still his gravity brought double teams and things like that, but they might not win 30-7, but they're still going to win that football game.
Well, how about Javon Hargrave playing his former team? His first game in San Francisco, gets a sack today, looked really good playing next to Eric Armstead. Like, this team looks really, really, really good.
Pack the bags.
There was one play where both Armstead and Hargrave had incredible pushes in the interior of the defensive line against the offensive line, and the pocket just collapsed on Pickett. He had nowhere to go. Armstead and Hargrave as a duo on the inside, and you pair that obviously with the reigning defensive player of the year and maybe Drake Jackson, who could take a step forward. I know that the Eagles' defensive line is still really good. The Cowboys' defensive line is incredible. This Niners' defensive line very well could be the best in the NFL.
And by the way, now that you mention it, because I know everybody is wondering, just a couple scores here. Eagles, Patriots, 19-14. That's in the third. So Eagles winning, but we talk about setting the tone, right? And there has been no game that I've seen so far. Packers are up 24-6, but it's the Bears. There's been no game besides that game where they've made a statement, right? With the elite other teams in the NFL. And
unless you're Jacksonville, right, Mark?
Well, Cleveland made a statement against the Bengals.
That's true. Now, keeping it to the NFC West, Rams are, because next week you get the Rams, and everybody is saying, hey, Rams, no cup, whoever. Rams are beating the Seahawks 14-13.
In Seattle.
Fraud alert. Fraud alert.
Week 1 alert.
It's early.
Fraudulent alert.
It's early.
I know.
But could I argue that the Niners defense made Kenny Pickett want to get acupuncture at Acurature?
Oh, gosh.
I'll
That's
leave
a
now.
negative, too.
I'll leave now.
Yeah, lock the door on the way out.
Not a good one.
And also, never go Jeff. Hargrave, yes, played for the Eagles last year, but started his career in Pittsburgh. So, yes, his former team.
Yes. I mean, he's only been on great defensive lines in his entire career.
It's almost like a player gets lucky by playing next to all pros everywhere. He's done it now 3 times.
Yeah. 100%. One more from Kyle Shanahan. He was asked about Brock Purdy's performance in week number 1. Here's what the 49ers head coach had to say about his quarterback.
I thought Brock had a good game. Made some big plays, got some explosives there and some tight windows. We had some issues in protection, not just issues that we knew that were going in. Hope he can hold on to it when those do happen, just so we don't turn it over and fumble. But I thought Brock had a hell of a game. Yeah,
Brock had a hell of a game, but he did put the ball on the ground twice. He recovered kind of miraculously once on his own behind his back. He did get a strip sack, and TJ Watt picked it up once. But overall, solid day from Brock Purdy.
In a way, is that a butt fumble?
I was going to say, is that the butt grab? What do we call it?
The butt recovery.
The butt recovery. That really set the tone for the day.
It really did. Great play there by Brock Purdy. All right, time for a break here on Overtime. We got one segment left. We will catch up with JD, John Dickinson, live from Pittsburgh. Coming up on the other side, the 49ers dominate the Pittsburgh Steelers in week number 1, 30-7 the final score. Brock Purdy looked good. Brandon Aiyuk looked incredible. Drake Jackson, 3 sacks. The defense, 2 interceptions. It was a fantastic day all the way around for the 49ers. We'll pick JD's mind about week 1 coming up next. It's Overtime. Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, Sterling Bennett. More coming up on the other side right here on 95.7 The Game.
Did you know that most people wait 6 or 7 years before they buy a new TV? That's a lot of time in front of one TV.
the 49ers. 30-7 week 1 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. The 49ers dominant early. They got out to a 20-0 lead before the Steelers scored late in the first half. Christian McCaffrey took one 65 yards to the house early in the third to put the 49ers back in front by 20. They cruise to a 30-7 win in week number 1 on the road in Pittsburgh. And now joining the show, joining Overtime live from Pittsburgh is John Dickinson, JD here on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. JD, thanks so much for coming on. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Yeah, good to be with you. And that, to me, was a stunner. Not that the 49ers won, but that they completely dominated the game really up front from the jump, took the crowd out of it, and really for the most part, other than a short period of time toward the end of the first half and up until McCaffrey took it to the house there early in the second half, felt like they were in no danger at all of losing this game.
Yeah.
That was pretty much night-night when McCaffrey took that to the house, and I just impressive stuff for any and all the concerns that we've all had, and I had addressed a few of them with Evan and with Lowe on the pregame. The Niners, at least for a day, knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, 100%. JD, I wanted to ask you about the start of the game. You mentioned the hot start, and this game kind of felt over at times in the first half and then very early in the third quarter. For me, it kind of felt like an emotional switch because the offseason was so strange and weird and awkward at times and difficult for a lot of people within the organization and fans outside of the organization. But the Niners just come out and absolutely dominate. Did you feel like this was the team, obviously beginning the season on a good note, but putting all of that awkwardness from the preseason and the offseason behind them and just reminding everyone that, hey, this is perhaps the most talented roster in the NFL?
Yeah, it's a team that believes that they can get to and win the Super Bowl. And I'm with you. I think whether it was the Brock Purdy injury, how healthy would he be, some of the questions around that, everything with all of the focus on the backup quarterback, which I think took focus away from Bosa not being around. And then when they finally decided that Darnold was going to be the backup and Trey Lance was going to be gone, all eyes turned to Bosa really quickly because he still wasn't there, and all of a sudden it was September 1st in a couple of days, and he winds up coming in, and I thought that while it gave him a jolt, the timing of his return and it being announced right before that first press conference of that first week, day of the week of practice on Wednesday, I thought it would give him a jolt. I wasn't so sure, though, that they'd be able to just come out firing on all cylinders like just a well-oiled machine the way that they did. I thought it had the potential to still be a little awkward until they kind of got their bearings on the season. Well, they got their bearings. I mean, all of that, I think you nailed it. All of that is gone now as far as anything. That Purdy looked healthy. I thought today, remember, there was the report this morning that I'm sure you guys have talked about there's some concern about, can he does he have enough arm strength? Is he going to get dead arm? I mean, all those things I think are things we'll all focus on throughout the course of the season. But I think any questions that you may have had about the Niners were all pretty much answered for today. So now we can spend the next week and maybe a couple weeks talking about how that they're going to win the Super Bowl. So that's just the nature of how it goes, right?
Yeah, JD, everybody I'm sure is Googling their flights and everything to Vegas right now. JD, what stuck out or surprised you the most in this game?
Just the dominance from the jump. I expected this to be a good game. I expected it to be a good game. I thought it was going to be a hard-nosed, knockdown, drag-out, grinded-out battle between two physical teams. I thought it was going to be just kind of an ugly, trying to find your way first game. And I thought Eric Armstead on the first series with Pittsburgh deciding they wanted to take the ball, by the way, which I thought was interesting. Pittsburgh won the toss and took the ball rather than defer and take which basically everybody defers now. And I thought it was I think it was a statement of confidence maybe in his own team that they had maybe fixed some things offensively and that Pickett had such a great season they wanted to get off to, or preseason that they wanted to get off to a fast start. But Eric Armstead, I thought, just blew up the whole first series, 3 and out, no momentum, crowd not in the game, and then the 49ers go down, and the 49ers immediately are able to punch it into the end zone. They convert on 4th and 1 after they get stuffed on 3rd and 1, and it was just they put one on Patrick Peterson right away with Aiyuk, and to see the way Purdy celebrated on that first touchdown pass, it was like everything kind of clicked in that moment, and everybody was so fired up here in Pittsburgh for this game. And the Steelers had a lot of hype, I think, surrounding them, thinking that they were going to be better than the 9-8 teams that they've been the last couple of years. And to see the Niners just snuff it out immediately and then put some pressure on Pickett to where he throws an interception. Niners go up 10-0, and they completely took the crowd out of the game. The crowd was never really in the game except for late in the first half. And yeah, that was the stunning part. It was just complete domination at the line of scrimmage in the trenches, which set up everything else. It set up McCaffrey, stud. Aiyuk, stud. I thought Armstead today was a flat-out stud. You got Drake Jackson with 3 sacks. Even the special teams was good. I mean, it was just a buttoned-up performance. I mean, what do you even nitpick about today? Ambry Thomas, a little bit. I mean, maybe. I mean, what? I mean, they're just it's a win. I didn't think you'd come out of week 1 with the 49ers thinking that there was nothing really to nitpick.
JD, there was a lot of questions coming into the year about Drake Jackson. Could he be a 6 or 8 sack guy across from Nick Bosa? He gets 3 today, with the defense getting 2 takeaways, 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, and just dominating Pittsburgh up front all day long. But Drake Jackson, again, how big of an impact did he have in today's game, and how important do you think he'll be down the stretch when Nick Bosa maybe has a day like today where he has no sacks and doesn't do too much in the box score, but Drake Jackson, 3 sacks again today? How important is he going to be for this team as the season progresses?
Huge. It's huge because of all the attention that Bosa is going to get, all of the havoc that Armstead and Hargrave can wreak. That there are going to be opportunities for players on that other side, whether it's Drake Jackson, whether it's Cleveland Ferrell. Once the 49ers get this thing dialed and Bosa's back up to playing his usual full freight and complement of snaps, I think the Niners are gambling a little bit that they have enough in terms of the other younger pass rushers that they have opposite of Bosa. So today's a great sign because you really want to have 3 or 4 guys, right? You want to have and ideally you'd have 2 really good ones or a great one and a really good one. The Niners have a great one, and then you don't really know as far as the outside pass rushers go. So for Drake Jackson to make a jump, and Nick Bosa said in his post-game press conference that was a jump that they he had been watching film on him even though he hadn't been in the building, and it's a jump that everybody has thought that he would be able to make from year 1 to year 2. Got hurt a little bit in training camp. He's in better shape. He's sturdier, bigger, and so it shows, I think, a weapon that the 49ers maybe, it was a question mark coming into the season, and it's still a question mark. It doesn't check the box for good, and I think with all this salary cap space that the 49ers have been clearing up and moving around and doing all these things in the aftermath of Bosa's deal, I think they're setting themselves up to be able to make a couple of moves at the deadline, and what could be a maybe a more wild NFL trading deadline than there has been in other years. They're setting themselves up to make a move. I think if maybe go get a premium type pass rusher if they feel that they need it opposite of Bosa. But so far, Drake Jackson may be showing them that either they don't need it or that he could be a hell of a third option in a rotation of a bunch of guys.
John Dickinson with us here on Overtime live from Pittsburgh. JD, we'll get you out of here on this one. Really quick, I got to ask you about Nick Bosa, the guy lined up opposite Drake Jackson for much of the game. He probably played a higher percentage of the snaps than the 49ers were expecting because the defense really wasn't out there all that much today. He didn't have a classic Nick Bosa play, didn't have a sack, didn't force a fumble, that sort of thing, but obviously was pretty effective out there for a defense that was fantastic. Just overall, what did you see from Nick Bosa in his first game, obviously, this year, and just a couple of days after he signed his contract?
Yeah, he obviously is going to draw a lot of the attention, and to me, it was a perfect game one because the Niners didn't need him to have multiple sacks to be able to dominate, but yet he was able to get out there, get some reps, get kind of used to that game speed, draw a lot of attention to free things up for others to be able to make plays, and then you look up at the end of it, and he says, "Hey, I felt great. I got exactly the amount of reps, even though it was done in a different way because of all the 3 and outs that they had planned. And physically, he's feeling good and now can get a full week of practice before going and taking on the Rams. And now they can kind of, I think what you're probably going to see is an ease in even next week. And then with the quick turnaround, they're probably going to have to play him less Sunday because of Thursday, if that makes sense. And so that being the short week game 3 against the Giants. And then I think I think the plan is probably to get him to full go by the Arizona game in week 4. But just to see him come out fully healthy, in a way, you almost look at it now, I think, as like hindsight. It's kind of a preseason game for Bosa. Like everybody else was playing it was regular season, full speed, all that. But he kind of was able to just work his way in, not have a lot of he didn't draw a lot of attention in terms of the eyes and the flash plays like you're talking about. But I think it's a nice first step. A little more of that type of a plan against the Rams. I think it could be a similar snap count just because you're going to have that third game coming so quickly. But then you get the 10 days. And I think that's where you're building toward more of a full-go Nick Bosa for that Arizona game on October 1st and then the Dallas game after that. And, all goes well and he stays healthy. And I would say probably, week 4, week 5, you're looking at a guy that is probably as good as he's, ever been and ready to roll for a big-time run.
Gotcha. Good stuff, JD. We appreciate you coming on as always. Really good coverage as well. You can check it out on the 95.7 The Game Twitter page. JD, thanks so much, and safe travels back to the Bay.
All right, you got it, fellas. And, next week I'll be in L.A. as well. So if you want to have me pop on and after the ball game, look forward to that as well.
Sounds good, JD. Have a good trip.
All right, you got it.
All right, that's JD. John Dickinson on with us here on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. Again, if you want to check out some of his coverage, 95.7 The Game on Twitter. He's got a bunch of videos up from inside the locker room after the game. Some of those things he was talking about, you can hear from Nick Bosa and company, courtesy of JD on at 95.7 The Game on Twitter. JD, I think talking about Nick Bosa is interesting because you didn't have that signature play, right? You didn't have him.
There was no shrug.
There was no shrug. You didn't get it. You're going to have to wait at least one more week. Maybe it'll be for the first time on Thursday in the home opener against the Giants. We'll see. But I think I agree with JD. Overall, Nick Bosa passed the test, right? Like, he's physically there. Football shape is a little different than just being in shape and being able to play 70%, 80% of defensive snaps. Mm-hmm. Just because he didn't have the classic Nick Bosa strip sack, dragging a running back down from behind doesn't mean he didn't have a very good game. You consider that he joined this team on Thursday. I'm definitely a step in the right direction for Nick Bosa today.
Yeah, you get the W, a decisive W, and you leave healthy. I think that's
what more could you want?
There's nothing else you could want. And the Niners also, not to jinx them, knock on wood, but they do kind of own the Rams. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see Bosa unleashed against the Rams.
Do you buy the idea that JD said that we might not see a fully, 100% operational Nick Bosa until week 4, 5?
Maybe. I think it'll be interesting how the 49ers plan out week 2 on Sunday against the Rams because say they build a lead early again.
Right.
You're not going to want to run any of your starters into the ground because you have a short week turnaround. You play on Thursday, week 3, your home opener against the Giants, which is probably going to be a really physical game. The Giants are a physical football team. I think JD's probably onto something. The Niners might be keeping an eye, obviously they did today, but specifically on Nick Bosa and his snaps on Sunday, week 2, because you want to make sure that he's ready to go on a short week number 3 at home.
Well, what if he had practiced the whole week this week? Is there still a snap restriction? Probably not. So why would there be a week 2? Now, I do agree that short week Thursday, Giants in week 3, if you're up by 15 late in the game and there's 6 minutes left, pull your guys out and call it a day. Mm-hmm. But you have to win next week. The Rams are winning right now and beating a team
on the road in Seattle.
which Seattle's supposed to be your toughest competition in your division, you have to win next week. If the Rams win today, they can't be 2-0. They're not a good team. And if Nick Bosa, now, again, this team is so stacked that Nick Bosa, will have an impact and is this team's most important player and their best player, him not playing for 30 snaps a game is not going to kill them.
Right.
But I do wonder that, I would be upset if they did say Nick Bosa is only going to play 40 snaps again.
Well, you can't. I think the tough part of this is that basically we know how coach speak is. Mm-hmm. They're going to say all the right things and say, hey, the Rams, they get paid over there. They're professional football players too.
Well, Nick Bosa gets paid more now, though.
And Nick Bosa gets paid. That's a very expensive shrug these days. And again, you go out and right after the Rams, if they do beat the Seahawks, even just being in the conversation and making it a game, it's telling you right there, you can't take any team for granted, and everybody's overlooking the Rams. And we talk about chips on shoulders, and the Rams know that everybody thinks that they're not going to do anything this season, and you don't have Cooper Kupp, and maybe the Seahawks were the fool's gold. We'll see, but ultimately, you can't take any team for granted.
Yeah, 100%. Final few minutes of overtime here on 95.7 The Game. The 49ers 30-7 winners over the Pittsburgh Steelers in week number one, on the road in Pittsburgh. Niners played well on both sides of the ball. Brock Purdy, 19 for 29, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Did lose 1 fumble on a strip sack from former Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt, but all in all, Purdy checked off every box today. And we got a caller, Dre in Lemoore, 888-957-9570 if you want to get in before we do sign off in a little more than 5 minutes here on 95.7 The Game. Up first is Dre in Lemoore wanting to talk about that quarterback. Dre, what's up? You're on overtime on 95.7 The Game.
Thank you for taking my call. I got something to say about Brock, but if you guys don't mind, I'd like to say something about the whole performance today.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Niners were the superior team. I had a friend over for breakfast. He's a big Pittsburgh fan. He was telling me how good Pittsburgh is, how they're going to whip us up. Hey, we beat them up both sides of the line. Oh, my God, McCaffrey today, Aiyuk. Did you see Aiyuk decleat that DB on that long McCaffrey run?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
That is vintage 49er blocking downfield.
Yeah. 100%, Dre. You want to talk about Brock now?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Hey, I've been hearing all these talking heads all week. He's a system quarterback. Well, you know what he is? He's an NFL system quarterback. You put him on any team, that man's going to perform. He's got the moxie. He's got the courage. He's got the confidence. He's got the arm. He might not have a cannon, but he knows where to put it, and he knows how to hit his receivers in stride. I feel great about him. Just keep him standing on his feet all year. Looks like a good year's guy. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Dre. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy, again, I think it gets back to something we were talking about earlier. I don't really care what the national narrative is around Brock Purdy. He seems to be the right fit for this offense. Mm-hmm. And we're getting to a point, I know it's only week 1, but this is kind of, I think, a continuation from last year. If Brock Purdy stays healthy, the 49ers have not lost with him. And they've played some quality teams in that run.
Right.
And this team got better this offseason.
Yeah, this game reminded me of how people felt, I guess, naysayers after the Dolphins game. So when Purdy, they beat the Dolphins, and the Dolphins were that high-flying team, they came in and immediately scored, right?
Yeah.
And the Niners didn't flinch, and they won. And then all of a sudden, after that game, it was, well, the Dolphins really that good? So now we're doing the same thing with the Steelers. Were the Steelers overhyped? Only time will tell, but ultimately, you put it on a team the way the Niners put it on them, that's a statement regardless. I mean, again, look around the league. What other statements like this have been made? Not many in terms of, hey, we're just better than you, and you didn't play. We know the Steelers aren't the worst team in the league, okay? So do with that what you will. It's just an impressive performance by the Niners.
Minus winning a championship, is this the most impressive start to a rookie or young quarterback's career ever? He's undefeated, never lost a game minus the Eagles game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I guess Mahomes. But yeah, he was MVP his first year as a starter, which was his second year in the league.
Okay. I'll give you Mahomes.
I mean, it's really good company.
Right, outstanding company.
But I mean, like, when we're comparing Purdy to top 10 guys, at least to begin his career, he's outplayed some of the greats. Why aren't we putting him in that category yet when it comes to what he could be? A lot of it's system quarterback. It's all Kyle Shanahan, all the weapons. But in reality, Brock Purdy has outperformed first-round picks left and right. He's better than Baker, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. He's in a very small sample size. Some could even put him ahead of Kyler Murray, who is a good quarterback in himself.
I mean, this game was a perfect example. Kenny Pickett, first quarterback taken in last year's NFL draft. Brock Purdy, the last quarterback taken in last year's NFL draft. The conversation, I know it was had earlier last week on Willard and Dibs. Who you taking moving forward, Brock Purdy or Kenny Pickett? I know it's a conversation that can evolve as these careers continue on. But I mean, after today,
it's pretty clear.
It seems pretty straightforward.
And again, you talk about, the Steelers kind of like the Ravens. Hey, we're
revamped.
We're revamping our offense. We're going to scheme guys open. And there were open guys that Kenny just missed. So if you want to make the argument of Brock being that system guy, even within the system, this man does not miss throws.
Well, what did Lodell say in the lobby? Kenny Pickett is not an NFL quarterback. He's missing wide open players. He's missing receivers that his coach is scheming up for him, while Brock Purdy's out there dialing up Brandon Aiyuk in amazing plays and extending plays and going first down line and celebrating with the guys for 30 points.
Right, and that's why I don't even think that Lowe is right. I think that it's a product of how good Purdy looked. I think Kenny Pickett is a NFL QB.
He's fine.
But when you go up against this Niners team and you have somebody and Pickett didn't play well. When you have someone that's just not missing throws, it's going to make everybody look bad because Brock's just not missing throws.
Yep. 100%. He looked good. 49ers look good. It's really hard to nitpick anything from this win. 30-7 is the final score. The Niners open up the 2023 regular season with a win. Now they travel to Los Angeles to take on the Rams, who are locked in a divisional battle against the Seahawks up in Seattle right now. The score of that game, if I can find it, Rams up 24-13, 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Rams have the ball as well with 9 minutes left. So it could be a battle of 1-0 teams a week from today. We'll be back, myself, Mark Randy, Alan Stiles, and Sterling Bennett 1 week from now. In fact, right around 1 week from now, we'll be taking the air for another edition of Overtime here on 95.7 The Game, because it is a 1 o'clock start next week. Week number 2 for the San Francisco 49ers. Already looking forward to that. But make sure you're tuned in tomorrow on 95.7 The Game for more reaction to today's game, a 30-7 win for the San Francisco 49ers. All right, that'll do it for Overtime after week number 1 of the 2023 regular season. For John, for Craig, for my guys Alan and Sterling, my name is Mark Randy signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in. Shout out all the texters on the Xfinity mobile text line and the Twitch and YouTube chats powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Appreciate you guys as always, and we'll catch up with you again on Overtime next week right here on 95.7 The Game.
So, how's your research going?
Surprising. After I figured out the top-rated TVs in our price range, I went shopping for deals.
And who's the best?
It wasn't the internet, and it wasn't the where.